Chapter 12:12. Healing was one of the basic skills of a spirit gatherer. However, both the healing and the divine healing technique always used healing radiance. This kind of power actually existed between heaven and earth, floating in the void. The difference between the healing and the divine healing technique was that the divine healing technique could obtain more healing radiance in a short period of time. It didn't mean that the divine healing technique had more extraordinary features than the healing technique. For example, this healing radiance was only heaven level, low quality, but Han Fei knew that it was probably much stronger than the divine healing technique. The only thing that puzzled Han Fei was why the power that a spirit gatherer could master was always of a low level. At least he had never heard of anyone who had a particularly powerful healing technique. Of course, he didn't remember that Diwu Haiguang had also used this technique on him. But this didn't prevent Han Fei from continuing to deduce. If this healing radiance was only heaven level, low quality, then there should be a more powerful healing technique. Deduce. This time, the new information refreshed Han Fei. Holy light technique, heaven level, high quality. Introduction. There is radiance between heaven and earth, which is called healing divine radiance. The divine radiance connects with the origin of the void, nourishes billions of creatures, and gives all things the foundation of recovery. The radiance is bundled and can become holy light. When the holy light descends, miracles are born. Deduced art, holy light chain spiritual energy consumption. 200 million points. When he saw this information, Han Fei frowned. The introduction of the holy light technique had changed a little, but it was not the key. It was only heaven level, high quality, and miracles were about to be born. It seemed that the path of a spirit gatherer wasn't simple. Seeing that the deduction cost had become 200 million points, Han Fei immediately looked at his spiritual spring that still had more than 1 billion points. He didn't panic at all and continued to deduce. After a while, the information appeared again. Holy light chain, heaven level, divine quality. Introduction. There is radiance between heaven and earth, which is called healing divine radiance. The divine radiance connects with the origin of the void, nourishes billions of creatures, and gives all things the foundation of recovery. The radiance is bundled and shines on all creatures, forming healing chains that heal all wounded creatures within the illuminated range. Healing range. The healing range varies according to the strength, pattern, and realm. Deduced art, apocalyptic divine technique spiritual energy consumption, 1 billion points. Note, the current range is 1,000 meters. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. This was something he had never heard of before. If someone on the Scattered Stars Island had this holy light chain, they would definitely be super popular. Wherever he went, he would be worshipped. However, what tempted Han Fei most was the apocalyptic divine art. The path of a spirit gatherer was definitely not easy. Even the Beast King art, which was also a heaven-level divine quality, only cost 500 million to deduce, while the Heavenly Awakening art cost 1 billion. It could be seen that the level of this derivation technique was probably even higher than the Beast King art. Glancing at the spiritual spring, Han Fei thought that he would be poor again in the blink of an eye. Han Fei suddenly grinned. He dared to give up 5 million caddies of spiritual spring and blow up the iceberg city. What was a mere 1 billion points of spiritual energy? At most, he could just snatch it himself. Deduce. Buzz. The old turtle had been observing Han Fei. However, suddenly he saw that Han Fei's spiritual spring was almost emptied. The massive amount of spiritual spring water was suddenly sucked away, leaving the old tortoise dumbfounded. The old tortoise knew that Han Fei must be doing something big. 1 billion points of spiritual energy was not a yellow croaker that could be fished out easily. At the same time, in the outside world, in the realm of ice, oh no, on the battlefield of the entire waterwood sky, the sky rumbled, the clouds and mist were broken, and the sun was shining. The venerables all looked up at the sky, and there seemed to be a subtle power blooming. On the battlefield, someone was fighting passionately. Zhou Fa was covered in blood, and the longbow in his hand had been broken. The 3 shrimp soldiers in front of him were attacking him. He knew that he couldn't escape. Zhou Fa roared, "Even if I die, I won't die in the hands of the Sea Clan." A shrimp soldier's face changed drastically. Not good, he's going to explode himself. Retreat. When the 3 shrimp soldiers retreated, suddenly, a beam of light suddenly fell from the sky and shone directly on Zhou Fei's body. Zhou Fei's spiritual energy had been circulating and he was about to explode. However, as soon as this beam of light fell, he felt as if he were lying on a soft sand bed. That kind of sourness, that kind of beauty, directly made him forget what he was prepared to do. In the extreme comfort, the wounds on Zhou Fei's body, large and small, were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the puncture wound on his abdomen and the broken leg bone were healing quickly. After a full 3 breaths, Zhou Fei finally regained his senses. His face was full of shock. His injuries had actually recovered by more than half in an instant. Not just Zhou Fei, but many humans on the battlefield were also enveloped by the beams of light. The scene was just like the billions of beams of light that shot down from the sky in ancient times. It was extremely shocking. Those who didn't know better might think that aliens were attacking Earth. In the holy light, someone exclaimed, "My wounds are all healed." Someone roared, "I feel energetic. I can fight again." A spirit gatherer was shocked. Who is it? Did Her Majesty take action in person? A venerable was dumbfounded. No, this is not the power of a king at all. It's more like the manifestation of a great Tao. That's why it has such a terrifying healing ability. And soon, both the Shuemu heaven and the sea demons discovered that those who could be baptized by the white light on the entire battlefield were all seriously injured humans. Even a fool knew that this matter was definitely related to the human experts. A bug roared, "Has a great master of the human race appeared?" The Sky Clan hovered and looked around, trying to find the person who attacked. The 9 venerables of the human race. Oh no, Yu Chen, who had just made a breakthrough in the bloody battle, were all shocked. Wushang Shui murmured, "Is the human king back?" The Life Queen and the King of the Sea Clan were all shocked. They looked up at the sky solemnly. The Cold King said, "It's impossible for a new king to be born in this desolate land. I'm curious, what on earth has the Shuemu heaven been planning recently?" The Life Queen ignored him and slightly turned her head, but she was slightly unhappy in her heart. Is this the Apocalypse divine technique? The unparalleled great Tao of a spirit gatherer has been revealed at this moment? At this moment, Han Fei, who was hiding in Forge the Universe, didn't feel anything. He was staring at the Apocalypse divine technique in a daze. Apocalypse divine technique, unrated. Introduction. The Apocalypse divine technique is also known as the Immortal divine technique. This technique connects with the origin of the void and summons infinite healing light at the cost of one's life. Under the illumination of Apocalypse, evil spirits are purified and wounds are healed. Effect 1. Healing light. According to the condition of the wounded body, a lot of spiritual energy will be consumed to quickly heal the wounded body. Effect 2. Life overdraft. The caster can use the Apocalypse divine power at the cost of his life in exchange for the recovery of the wounded body. Effect 3. The Apocalypse Great Tao. Those who practice this Great Tao will master the Apocalypse Great Tao and their lifespan will be doubled. The effect of life overdraft will gradually decrease as one's strength grows. Deduction. Cannot be deduced, can only be comprehended spiritual energy consumption. Unknown note. The Apocalypse divine technique is just the beginning. The Apocalypse Great Tao is the return of a spirit gatherer. Gudu. When he saw this information, Han Fei was dumbfounded. Did I deduce another Great Tao? The soul-splitting path just now only required 100 million points of spiritual energy to deduce, but this Apocalypse divine technique was 10 times more expensive. That's more like a Great Tao. Besides, the Apocalypse divine technique also said that this was just the beginning of the Apocalypse Great Tao, which meant that he had spent 1 billion points of spiritual energy and finally found the beginning of a Great Tao. Han Fei's heart sank. He discovered a phenomenon. It seemed that once a combat skill reached the venerable level, if he continued to deduce it, it would no longer be a combat skill itself, but a great path. Didn't it mean that combat skills almost came to an end when they reached the venerable level? Because after that, it was the Great Tao. If you didn't enter the Tao, How could you learn this strongest secret technique? It was exactly because of this that Han Fei was quite hesitant. Did he really have to choose one of these great Tao? Although the main purpose of an explorer was to explore the great Tao and the direction of his own great Tao. If he could deduce great Tao one by one. In the end, there were so many great Tao in front of him, but he could only choose one? How fucking uncomfortable is this? Han Fei finally couldn't help but ask, "Old Turtle, can each person only take one great Tao?" The old turtle? The old turtle had been waiting for Han Fei to speak. However, he didn't expect that Han Fei would ask this question. The question was, why did Han Fei ask this question? The old turtle couldn't help but say, "It's already very rare for ordinary people to get one great Tao." Han Fei keenly grasped a word. Ordinary people? Han Fei asked, what about abnormal people? For example, those peerless heavenly talents, geniuses? There was doubt in the old turtle's eyes, but he still explained, "When I say ordinary people, it's just an ordinary situation. A person usually chooses a great Tao in the end. Because the further you go, you will find that the great Tao is too difficult to walk. You can't even clearly tell how many great Tao you have walked." Because of this, some people began to think that since one great Tao can't be taken, then take another one. It's just that. Han Fei hurriedly asked, "But what?" The old turtle sneered. "No matter how you go, you have to take a great Tao. This is the path that you must choose in the end. You can give up everything else, but you can't let go of this great Tao. Even if you want to take more than one great Tao at the same time, you need to determine one great Tao. Otherwise, if your understanding of the great Tao is not strong enough and your Tao is not deep enough, you won't be able to take any other great Tao." Han Fei was silent for a long time. "I see. So, how many great Tao can a person take?" The old turtle was so angry that he laughed. "As many as you want to take. However, the more great Tao you take, the more unclear your great Tao will be. At that time, you won't know how to take that great Tao. In the end, if you make a difficult choice, your Tao heart will be unstable, and all the great Tao will collapse. You will be stuck in the semi-venerable realm or the semi-king realm for the rest of your life." Apex. Chapter 12:13. Hearing the old turtle's explanation, Han Fei immediately understood. So, in fact, in the final analysis, it was not certain which path to take. Even ordinary explorers could take many paths. At this stage, being able to create a grand Tao of quintessence was the crux of the problem. Han Fei curled his lips casually. Since there are thousands of great Taos, why are there still so many people who can't become venerables? Thousands of great Taos? The old turtle chuckled. If you want everyone to find their own great Tao, then there are indeed thousands of great Taos. Huh? What do you mean? The old turtle said disdainfully, "Actually, it is not difficult to enter the Tao. As long as you are an explorer, you can understand a path. Of course, just this step alone was something that very few people could accomplish. What is really difficult is not to enter the Tao, but the quality of the Tao itself. Why do so many venerables stop at the half-king realm? Because their path is only enough for them to reach the half-king realm. Which great Tao can be casually entered by anyone who can become a monarch." Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Is it not difficult to enter the Tao? Han Fei already understood. The old turtle had been an emperor for so long that he had probably forgotten that for ordinary people, it was already extremely difficult to enter the Tao. Besides, it was not easy to go to the extreme of a great Tao. What made Han Fei guess was that the old turtle said that many people walked their own great Tao. The implication was that in addition to their own great Tao, there were other great Tao that everyone could walk? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "So, there are some great Tao in this world that most people can walk together?" The old turtle nodded. Of course, the 5 major professions of the human race, the insect clan's explosive force technique, the sky clan's speed technique, and the demonic plant clan's accumulation technique. These are the most basic great Tao. They can be walked together, but they can't coexist. Han Fei was stunned for a moment. What do you mean? What do you mean by they can be walked together, but they can't coexist? The old turtle sneered. Think about it. If there is someone who walks exactly the same great Tao as you, What will you do? Han Fei was stunned for a moment. What can I do? The old turtle chuckled. Of course you will swallow him. Our great Tao is the same. As long as you take his great Tao, won't your great Tao of origin be several times more powerful than before? Hiss, you can do that? Han Fei's eyes widened. This is too fucking outrageous. So, he could snatch someone else's Tao. If he could keep robbing and robbing, wouldn't he not need to cultivate? The old turtle said, of course, many of the great Tao of origins that we snatched are comprehended by ourselves. There won't be a situation where our strength will multiply. However, on the same great Tao, the stronger one was, the harder it would be for them to coexist. Therefore, even if the great Taos were the same, those who ultimately walked this path were all mortal enemies. Therefore, although some Taos are common, there are very, very few who can walk at the peak. Han Fei's pupils constricted slightly. Then according to what you said, the 5 major professions of mankind will all be enemies in the end, won't they? The old turtle said leisurely, have you ever wondered how the 5 major professions came to be? Could it be a trap set up by a top expert of this path? They specialize in hunting those who have matured. Kings of the 5 professions? Han Fei was dumbfounded. He was so shocked that he was burnt to a crisp. Yeah. The 5 major professions give people a direction. However, who knows if this is a road of no return? Since the experts who walk on the same great Tao and spread the 5 major professions, why do they have to set up so many competitors for themselves? Han Fei couldn't help but shiver. The great Tao was too fucking deep. He couldn't think about it at all. The old turtle said again, especially for people like you. On your invincible path, there must be heavenly talents of other races who walk the invincible path. If you really walk on this path, when you are strong enough, you will find that everyone you meet at that time can be called invincible. Isn't it scary? Han Fei's eyelids twitched. So, the reason why the invincible path is so dangerous is because of this great Tao? The old turtle chuckled. You also know that the invincible path is dangerous? Many people just know it, but they don't know why. However, it doesn't hurt to tell you this. The great Tao of origins will attract each other. Even many kings don't understand this truth. Han Fei? The old turtle said, no matter what great Tao it is, it will follow a strange rule. They will always attract each other, meet each other, and fight each other in a certain way at a certain moment. Not only do origins attract each other, but also things that promote the growth of origins will also attract you. You will understand this rule after you become a venerable. However, mortals call this rule? Gulp. Han Fei swallowed. So, it may be difficult to even enter the great Tao if you walk on your own. But if you walk on an existing great Tao, you may also become a leek for others. What is a leek? Han Fei took a breath. A plant that can be harvested once it grows. The old turtle said leisurely, most people are not even qualified to be leeks. Han Fei's heart sank. In any case, according to the old turtle, then whether it is the invincible path or the heavenly enlightenment path, it is extremely difficult to walk. For the former, after you enter the great Tao, you may encounter a super strong master who also walks on the invincible path. For the latter, you may directly become a leek. Han Fei immediately took a breath. No. In 3 years, I will return to the yin-yang heaven and find a way to inform Luo Xiaobai and the others. I don't want to be harvested by others when I cultivate to the extreme. That would be a great loss. The old turtle said, actually, you don't have to be so nervous. Even if they were to be harvested, they had to have the capital to be harvested. You are only a junior explorer now. What you should think about is how to reach the peak as soon as possible. When you reach the peak, you can take your time to think about what great Tao to take. Han Fei let out a sigh of relief. The old turtle's words were reasonable. He was indeed thinking too much now. As for what path to choose, that was something he should think about when he reached the peak of the explorer realm. When he reached the peak of the explorer realm, he could at least guarantee that he would be able to dominate the yin-yang heaven and the waterwood heaven, right? At that time, even if he couldn't defeat a venerable, he would still have the strength of a junior venerable, so he wouldn't be able to run away. Thinking of this, Han Fei immediately said, "That makes sense." Han Fei took a deep breath. He did not immediately practice the new technique that he had just deduced. Instead, he made up his mind. Swish, Little Gold, Nine Tails, Little Fatty, and Licking Dog all came out. Meow meow. Licking Dog turned into an electric arc and was about to pounce on Han Fei. Han Fei raised his foot and kicked. "From now on, every time you meow, I will kick you. I will kick you until you doubt your dog life." Zizi. Nine Tails quickly crawled to Han Fei's side, rubbing against Han Fei while fiddling with Licking Dog, who had been kicked away with his 9 tails. Licking Dog had never seen such a scene before. Although it was an ancient mutant, it was also a legendary big shot. In front of him, 3 of them suddenly appeared. Besides, judging from their auras, they were about to become law enforcers. Little Gold tilted his head and looked at Licking Dog as if wondering why there were such strange creatures in this world. Little Fatty's round eyes rolled, looked at Licking Dog for a while, and then lost interest. Instead, he looked at Han Fei. Breakthrough. With a thought, 4 big pits appeared in Forge the Universe. In each pit, there were about 50,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, which was completely incomparable to the nearly 1,000,000 caddies he had before. These were all freshly looted, and most of them were not looted from Tao-seeking state monsters. Because spirit awakening fluid was not very useful to them. These spirit awakening fluid were basically looted from the Free Trade Valley. Han Fei hesitated and said, "You guys have reached the peak of your strength for a long time. Although there is not much spirit awakening fluid, it should be enough for you to make a breakthrough." Unlike him, when his strength soared all the way, he was still in the reincarnation and couldn't think of them at all. Later, they left the ideal palace and went to the Wind and Rain Village, where ordinary fisheries couldn't help them make a breakthrough and were more likely to be discovered. Therefore, Han Fei simply didn't let them live. However, from now on, Han Fei needed to find a way to push the 9 tails and the others to a new level. In 3 years, he thought, I should at least upgrade the 9 tails and the others to level 60? Even then, Han Fei felt it was a bit low. After all, he was already an explorer. Master, who are these?" Simp Licking jumped over with a swish and looked up at Han Fei, his eyes full of curiosity. Han Fei said lightly, "The 9 tails is your eldest brother, Little Gold is your second brother, and Little Fatty is your third brother." Then Han Fei introduced, "This is Old 4, his name is Simp Licking Dog." "Master, it's Tengu." Han Fei nodded. "Yes, Simp Licking Dog." Simp Licking Dog. Han Fei kicked him. "All of you, go swallow the spirit awakening fluid. If anyone can't make a breakthrough after swallowing it, I will throw you into the sea demon nest." Swish! Except for Little Fatty, the 9 tails and the others, with a swish, jumped into the spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei thought, next time, I have to let Little Black and Little White make a breakthrough. After all, Little Black and Little White were his spiritual beasts. Why were they always stuck at level 59? At this moment, the old turtle asked in confusion, "Is that 9 death soul splitting octopus?" Chapter 12:14. Han Fei was deeply surprised that the old turtle knew Little Fatty. He asked excitedly, "Do you know it?" The old turtle was silent for a long time. Why did the 9 death soul splitting octopus recognize you as its master? Han Fei thought, how can I tell you that? However, the old turtle said leisurely, "I'm afraid it has something to do with this calabash." Han Fei said gloomily, "Just say it. What's wrong with the 9 death soul splitting octopus?" The old turtle pondered and said, "Nothing, just an accident. Because I once met one. Although it only had the strength of a king, it could shake the emperor." Later, after the 9 death soul splitting octopus was resurrected for the last time, it seemed to be eaten by the sea-swallowing demon whale. Han Fei took a breath. The king? Was it eaten? The old turtle snorted. Can't a king be eaten? Let me remind you, the so-called contractual spiritual beast is just an independent Great Tao contract. If you really want them to enter the Great Tao, you have to let them cultivate instead of piling up resources. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. What if they die outside? The old turtle's voice buzzed. They haven't experienced bloody battles. Even if you raise them to enter the Great Tao, what can you do? Then where did their ancestors come from? Were they raised by someone else? Han Fei nodded. That seemed to make sense. Half a day later, to Han Fei's great disappointment, something happened. Except for the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, Little Gold and Little Fatty seemed to be a little bit short of a breakthrough. As for Simp Dog, he was the weakest one, but he was very good at drinking. He drank all the spirit awakening fluid, raising his level from 41 to 45. The speed of his advancement caused the old turtle to sneer and say that his method was incorrect. Han Fei didn't care whether it was right or not. The old turtle did have a point. Contractual spiritual beasts also had to grow. How strong could they be if they kept them? As for worrying about the death of the contractual spiritual beasts, didn't he also go through a lot of trouble? If they could not be raised as independent individuals, who cared if they were legendary or ancient mutants? Could they compare to real legendary creatures? It could be said that so far, when Han Fei used the nine-tailed mantis shrimp or Little Gold, he only used them to make powerful moves. Once the ultimate move was over, their mission was basically completed. At this moment, information emerged in Han Fei's eyes. Name: nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Introduction: a mutated mantis shrimp with swift speed and extremely powerful attack power. It is adept at hiding itself and ambushing its prey. Its 9 tails transform into 9 divine chains, making it extremely powerful. Level 50, Quality, Legendary, contains spiritual energy greater than 18,852 points. Food: Omnivorous, prefers shrimps. Battle skill: Void Chain, soul-piercing 9 tails. Remarks: Current state, growth period. Han Fei's expression changed slightly. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp only had one more combat skill called nine-tailed soul piercing. Judging from the name, it should be a type of soul skill. However, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp was only level 50, which was equivalent to a sea demon. Even the fiercest one was only a peak-level sea demon. Little Gold even peeked at him from time to time. Little Fatty, who was not afraid of boiling water, collapsed to the ground. Only the nine-tailed mantis shrimp was very happy. It sent a message to the nine-tailed mantis shrimp: "Am I awesome now that I've made a breakthrough?" Bang! Han Fei kicked it away. None of them made a breakthrough, but you did. It shows that your potential is not as good as others. Why are you so cocky? The dog shivered and thought to himself, this master is a bit fierce. My big brother is a bit miserable. Swish! The dog had jumped to the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, licked him with his big tongue, and comforted him. Big brother, don't be afraid. I'm weaker than you. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp couldn't stand being licked. With a flip of her body, her delicate figure directly sent the simp flying. Han Fei was speechless. With a thought, he took them all back. At this moment, Han Fei only felt tired. It seemed that the more contractual spiritual beasts he had, the better. Yes, since he went out, he really had to let them go in the next 3 years. If he didn't let them go, the legendary creatures would be crippled by him. 3 days later, Han Fei struggled on the ground for a while. It didn't hurt, but his flesh and blood were a little tight, and his physique was changing. When Han Fei changed from a half-mermaid to a more handsome half-mermaid, he let out a sigh of relief and said, "Wow, it turns out that demonic energy can run so smoothly?" The old turtle couldn't help but say, "Huh, your transformation technique seems to have become more powerful? Even I didn't see that you were a fake." Han Fei thought to himself, if you can see that, then there must be something wrong. I'm now an authentic sea demon, with pure bloodline and demonic energy. If I practice the demon god scripture, I'll definitely be a peerless heavenly talent among sea demons. So Han Fei unhurriedly began to practice the art of deception. After all, he had come from the waves and gone through the wind. He had seen and gotten to know all sorts of living beings. Even in this Forge the Universe, there were a pile of sea demon corpses, some of which were imitations. After more than an hour, Han Fei visualized thousands of creatures and finally chose a half-mermaid that no one knew. It looked like Yu Hanjia, one of the 8 wings of blue demons of the Yin-Yang sky. He looked a little gloomy. Huh. Is this the breath-concealing technique? No, it's aura simulation. Oh yes, it's the breath-concealing technique, but it's quite clever. Why haven't I seen you use it before? Han Fei curled his lips. Because I never thought of pretending to be a sea demon before. Now, I'm going to blend in. Han Fei didn't care whether the old turtle believed him or not. Anyway, the old turtle already knew enough of his secrets. But for now, he had to get out of here first. Han Fei grabbed the array diagram in his hand and said, "Old turtle, after we go out, in case the venerable is still there, you have to block the enemy's vision. But you have to block the enemy's vision." The old turtle frowned. "I can cover it for at most 1 second. After all, I'm seriously injured now." Han Fei curled his lips. "Hee, if I can't run away, you will die too. We are on the same boat. You should understand the saying that we are in the same boat." Sure that the old turtle must have a way to do it, Han Fei thought of something and appeared in the void. In this void, Han Fei tore the space without hesitation. After all, compared with the outside world, none of the creatures that could travel in the void were weak, so he had to be careful. Swish. At the moment when Han Fei tore the void, the old turtle suddenly said, "1 second." At the moment when Han Fei tore the void, the fish skin diagram in his hand unfolded, and a complicated long-distance teleportation array appeared. The moment he stepped out of the void, Han Fei seemed to hear a humph. However, no matter how fast the venerable was, it still needed time to react. Han Fei had already stepped into the teleportation array. In the next moment, Han Fei shook his body and became half a head taller. His aura changed from a junior explorer to an advanced sea spirit. More than 8,000 kilometers away, Han Fei appeared in an ice canyon and wandered around as if nothing had happened. Han Fei asked, "Old turtle, did you get rid of them?" The old turtle said, "Fortunately, you prepared the array diagram in advance. Otherwise, even if I cover you, I'm afraid you can't escape. There are venerables guarding you. It seems that you disappeared too mysteriously before and were noticed by him. If this time, he was just not sure if you were nearby. Then next time, he will definitely wait for you in the place where you disappeared." Han Fei's heart trembled. If this is the case, I can't expose myself again. Otherwise, how can I run if someone is waiting for me? Han Fei didn't dare to release his perception too much at this moment, but asked, "Where are we now?" The old turtle asked, "Didn't you draw the teleportation array?" Han Fei replied, "It's random. Do you think I can teleport to a fixed location in this situation?" The old turtle glanced around and said with some confusion, "If there is no accident, this place should not be far from the place where you blew up last time, no more than 3,000 kilometers away." "So close." The old turtle said, "That city was blown up by you. It's being rebuilt now." As soon as the old turtle said this, a team of half-mermaids swam over 300 kilometers away from Han Fei. Before Han Fei left, someone said to him via voice transmission, "Who's in front?" "Wait a moment." Hearing that, Han Fei paused and pretended to look around. When the other party was 200 kilometers away, he looked at the team. This person's perception is not weak. The female half-mermaid in the lead was surprised. Before she arrived, she had already spoken telepathically, "You don't look familiar." Han Fei suddenly had an idea. "I just came back from the Ice City Wall." Immediately, a half-mermaid shouted, "What? How dare you flee at the last minute?" Han Fei frowned. It seems that the frontline battle is not over yet. Han Fei immediately said in a domineering tone, "Don't talk nonsense. I, Yuhan Jia, am not the kind of person who would run away from a battle. I just sensed that I was about to make a breakthrough in the battle, so I made an exception and came back. But my home is gone." Hearing this, the leading half-mermaid immediately breathed a sigh of relief. "It turns out that you are about to make a breakthrough. Congratulations." Immediately, a half-mermaid cursed, "Not only your home is gone, but all our homes are gone. I don't know which bastard blew up the Ice Mountain City. Hundreds of millions of creatures were killed. The scene at that time was too horrible to look at. So far, no one knows what happened in the city that day." Someone added, This matter is a mystery. Everyone who knows it is dead. Even the Venerable didn't find out the secret. The leading half-mermaid said, "Okay, let's cut the crap. By the way, you Hanjia, when do you want to make a breakthrough?" Han Fei wondered, how did I kill hundreds of millions of creatures? These half-mermaids are really good at bragging. Thinking that he still had to run away, Han Fei immediately replied, "I feel that it will happen in a moment. Just now, I was looking for a place to make a breakthrough." The leading half-mermaid said, "Forget it. The situation is turbulent now. How about this, we will protect you. When you make a breakthrough and reach the peak level of the sea spirit realm, you can join our patrol team." Han Fei didn't know what to say. "I'm fucking running away. Don't you guys have any eyesight or knowledge?" At this moment, Han Fei really wanted to kill these idiots. But if he did it now, the consequences would be unpredictable. Who knew if there would be a Venerable watching? Helplessly, Han Fei could only agree, "Okay." Chapter 12:15. Han Fei deliberately waited for half an hour, and in front of more than a dozen half-mermaids, he made a breakthrough. Because it was all a disguise, there wasn't any earth-shattering scene. It looked like he was simply breaking through a realm. However, even so, when the cracking sound came out, several half-mermaids showed an envious look. Yu Hanjia's breakthrough this time is not small. He should be regarded as a heavenly talent. Someone nodded in agreement. If he wasn't a heavenly talent, he wouldn't have come back from the front line to seek a breakthrough. Han Fei slowly opened his eyes, pretending to feel his strength a little bit. He was pleasantly surprised, but then he suppressed it. The female half-mermaid said, "How is it? A peak-level sea spirit is more than 30% stronger, isn't it?" Han Fei nodded slightly. "I feel more than 40% stronger than before." The eyes of the leading female half-mermaid lit up. When an ordinary person broke through to the peak, it was already a huge leap for them to increase their strength by 30%. But this Yu Hanjia was actually more than 40% stronger. This strength couldn't be underestimated. If he completely consolidated his strength and made further progress, his strength could be improved by another 20% to 30%. At that time, he would be a real heavenly talent. Immediately, this person said, "My name is Yu Kaling, and I am also the captain of this temporary patrol team. Since you have just come back from the front line and your home is gone, why don't you join my patrol team? When we return to the Ice God Gorge, with your strength as a peak-level sea spirit, there will definitely be people who will offer you an olive branch." Han Fei frowned. These people are from the Ice God Gorge? Originally, Han Fei had given up the idea of robbing the Ice God Gorge. But at this moment, Yu Kaling said that she was going back to the Ice God Gorge. If this was the case, wouldn't it be very easy for him to sneak into the Ice God Gorge? It didn't matter whether he could rob them or not. If he couldn't, he could just find an excuse to come out to exchange for resources and slip away. He didn't have to worry about being discovered at all. Han Fei thought for a moment and smiled. Okay. No one had any objection to Han Fei's joining, because Han Fei's strength had been recognized by them and he stood on the same level as them. Besides, the iceberg city was equivalent to a post-disaster reconstruction. After all, there were many casualties. At this time, as fellow clansmen, he still had some basic sympathy. Han Fei followed the inspection team all the way to Ice Mountain City. Before they even reached Ice Mountain City, all they could see were floating ice and collapsed mountains. The Ice God Gorge had existed for countless years, and this was the first time that this group of mountains had been destroyed. In fact, normal people wouldn't do such a thing. The strong, if they couldn't afford to do anything, would fight the low-level sea monsters. Those who were not strong did not even have the qualifications to enter the Ice Mountain City. Han Fei heard someone cursing in his ear, "Damn Shui Mutian, they must be too arrogant recently. There are so many big and small things." Someone said in a low voice, "I heard that the Shuemu heaven has produced a peerless genius who has passed the 4-9 king tribulation, and a new venerable has appeared. Maybe they have really become arrogant." Yu Kaling said, "We don't need to talk about the front line. The Waterwood heaven had prodigies, but so did the royal city. They have to go to the outer seas to break through, but we don't. Therefore, Shui Mutian is merely deceiving himself. Exactly. Passing the 4-9 king tribulations doesn't mean that one can truly grow. Han Fei listened and thought to himself, who are you looking down on? If you have the ability, go ahead. Believe it or not, their brains would be split askew. Han Fei said lightly, I know who you are talking about. Han Fei of the human clan is indeed a genius. When I came back from the Ice City Wall, I heard that Han Fei is invincible in the same realm. His reputation in the Shuemu heaven is not small. Yu Kaling immediately turned her head and looked at Han Fei. Have you seen him? Someone said, it's not that incredible. Who is he? How dare he claim to be invincible in the same realm? Han Fei sighed leisurely. I haven't seen him, but my brother has. Someone swam up and asked curiously, what did your brother say? Han Fei sighed again. My brother is at the peak level of the sea spirit realm. He said that he met Han Fei once and was killed by him. Yu Kaling, everyone, Yu Kaling took a deep look at Han Fei. My condolences. Someone said, it seems that we can only wait for the real heavenly talent of the royal city to kill him. Han Fei sneered in his heart. I wonder how you will react if you know that I am Han Fei? In the Ice Mountain City, all kinds of caves on the hilltops had basically collapsed. Han Fei saw the huge pit that he had blasted out. And within 3,000 kilometers of the center of the explosion, all kinds of creatures were swimming quickly at this moment. Some were turning over the ice and digging up the remains of some sea demons. Someone drilled into the ground and dug holes crazily, as if searching for something. Someone next to him sighed. I really want to know what kind of power it took to blast out such a big pit. The whole city was turned upside down. Someone said, the whole city wasn't turned upside down, but the shock wave smashed half of the city, which is beyond doubt. I heard that the spiritual spring blew up. Yu Kaling said, okay, enough chit-chat. The impact was so great that many places have become ruins. Now there are ownerless things buried everywhere. It's a mess. Let's try to maintain order. Han Fei looked at the crabs that were digging holes, the serpents that were drilling in and out of the ice, and the half-mermaids that were breaking the ice with harpoons. Then he looked at the dozen or so people and finally looked at Yu Kaling in shock. A dozen or so people? Maintain order? The other half-mermaids also looked at Yu Kaling, and someone muttered, how can we maintain order? There's nothing we can do. Ha! A low-quality divine weapon. Suddenly, they saw that not far away, a big crab crawled out of a pit, waving a harpoon and roaring excitedly. Immediately, Han Fei felt that someone next to him was breathing fast, and he licked his lips. Sister Kaling, shall we also look for it? Yu Kaling immediately glared at the person who spoke, and then looked around. Seeing that Han Fei looked calm, she couldn't help but ask, Yu Hanjia, what do you think? Han Fei grinned. It's better to disperse than to stop them. If they want to rob us, let them. Anyway, these are ownerless things now. No matter who gets them, they will enhance the strength of the Sea Clan. Otherwise, if some strong masters really want these resources, they wouldn't have sent you here to patrol. Who would dare to embezzle it if a Dao-seeking powerhouse came to oversee it? Immediately, someone echoed, that's right. Sister Kaling. When the Ice Mountain City exploded, it seemed that many strong masters came, but no one said that they were going to collect these resources. Yu Kaling hesitated, but Han Fei's explanation seemed to make sense. Besides, when they came, no one told them why they were here. The patrol didn't know anything except that they were here to patrol. Han Fei said solemnly, if my guess is correct, you are actually the pillars of the Sea Clan. The Ice Mountain City is in chaos, and countless people are searching for resources. Why did the higher-ups send you here? I'm afraid it's not as simple as maintaining order, but to give you a chance, which shows that the higher-ups value you. Swish, swish, swish. Everyone immediately looked at Han Fei gratefully. That was too fucking good. They were just worrying about how to find an excuse. Oh, was there a better excuse than this? More importantly, they felt that what Han Fei said was very reasonable. Someone immediately praised, although I haven't fought with Brother Hanjia, I'm ashamed of your wisdom. Someone chimed in, that's right. Such wisdom is rare even in the Ice God Gorge. The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. I don't believe you. If you want to take advantage of me, just say it. Why do you have to find an excuse for me? Yu Kailing pondered for a moment. Well, we can hunt for treasures, but don't cause a riot. If there is a riot, we must stop it. Don't be too far away. We must take care of each other. As soon as Yu Kailing finished talking, everyone rushed out with a whoosh. Only Han Fei was calm and didn't prepare to hunt for treasures. Yu Kailing said in surprise, Yu Hanjia, aren't you going to look for some resources? The peak-level sea spirit needs a lot of resources. Han Fei smiled faintly. The Ice Mountain City is so big that almost all the places that can be sensed have been scanned. The key lies in the caves and arrays that can shield the senses. In such a place, I'll be lucky if I get it, and I'll be doomed if I don't. Yu Kailing glanced at Han Fei with appreciation. Sure enough, no one who can reach the peak-level sea spirit at such a young age is simple. Yu Kailing nodded. Okay, that makes sense. See you later. As soon as Yu Kailing left, Han Fei's eyes flickered. Heh, you want me to manage the order? Are you kidding me? How can I have that time? However, since he had come to the Ice Mountain City, he had blown up the city the first time. What should he do the second time? Han Fei scanned with his perception and secretly stretched out the void lines. In the distance, a black crystal sea serpent was drilling a hole. Suddenly, a big pincer clamped over. The hydralisk was shocked and swung its long tail, but it was still half a step too late. Gotcha! The serpent's body was directly clamped in half, but the serpent was not dead. It was immediately furious. Why did you attack me? Many people nearby looked over, but the crab still did what it wanted and swept its pincers again. In the eyes of the strong, the Ice Mountain City is nothing. Instead of searching, it's better to rob. They are all ownerless and can only be obtained with strength. As soon as the big crab finished speaking, a shrimp soldier jumped up and stabbed a starfish to death with his spear. Then he shouted, "Who stole the resources in my cave? Give them back to me." When there was one, there were two, and when there were two, there were three. After two people attacked, another half of the mermaids took action. Lowly lobster, put down my sea-swallowing seashell. A lobster raised its pincers. I discovered it first. Are you looking down on us lobsters? Oh, of course, you're not qualified to compete with me. You're asking to be killed. Bam, bam, bam. For a moment, the parties fought fiercely. In an instant they were all furious. Han Fei, the initiator of the fight, moved through the ruins unhurriedly, occasionally capturing a sea demon, causing some trouble, and occasionally digging out a sea-swallowing seashell from the ruins. Gradually, the Ice Mountain City became lively again. Because of the unknown reasons, there were more and more fights here. Yu Kailing had just reached a place where two half-mermaids were fighting. I order you to stop. However, one of them seemed to have been scared by Yu Kailing. Then he was pierced through by a harpoon and died. The man holding the harpoon widened his eyes. I didn't. It bumped into my muzzle. Yu Kailing's face was cold. Are you implying that I'm blind? Chapter 12:16. Control was never as easy as sabotage. Yu Kailing was only a member of the patrol team, so she could only temporarily detain those who she thought were villains. However, there were so many creatures looking for opportunities in the ruins, and conflicts were inevitable. In the beginning, within a radius of hundreds of kilometers, there might only be 2 or 3 conflicts. But at some point in time, this number had doubled. Of course, within 100 kilometers, the number of fights increased from 2 or 3 to 5, but the number was still very small. But don't forget how many sea demons in the Iceberg City were weak. In the beginning, the creatures would still compare whose speed was faster, whose perception was higher, whose opportunities were better, relying on their own strength to dig up opportunities. However, as the number of battles and deaths gradually increased, people's hearts began to waver. If others could fight, why couldn't I? Han Fei wandered aimlessly for 6 hours, walking around the whole place. From time to time, he used the void lines to control 2 or 3 sea demons to fight for treasures, and some even fought fiercely. Of course, all the creatures controlled by Han Fei could not escape the fate of death. In Han Fei's heart, the old turtle said, "It's time to take action. Otherwise, the probability of death is too high. Someone will definitely notice the abnormality." Han Fei pondered for a moment. It's only been 3 hours. Isn't it too fast? Suddenly, more than 200 kilometers away from Han Fei, Yu Kailing shouted, "Stop! Don't kill each other." Han Fei smiled. What a naive half-mermaid, but you don't know how sinister people are. Han Fei also shouted, "Grab resources, but don't kill each other." While shouting, he pretended to be surprised and said, "Kailing, you're here too?" Yu Kailing hadn't seen Han Fei for 6 hours and thought he had left alone. It turned out that he was also maintaining order. The funny thing was that those people who came with her had long disappeared. Who knew where they had gone to plunder? Yu Kailing said, "Great, let's act together later." However, what Yu Kailing didn't notice was that Han Fei was smiling mysteriously at this moment. Suddenly, in the distant sky, a massive amount of spiritual energy surged and glowed. The density of the spiritual energy attracted the attention of all the living beings in the surroundings. Someone exclaimed, "What a dense spiritual energy," accompanied by the impact of the multicolored light. A new pit must have been dug out. Someone was shocked. Is it the original site of the Trading Valley? Someone took a deep breath. It's indeed in the direction of the Trading Valley. For a moment, countless people gasped. Wasn't the Trading Valley blown into ruins long ago? Moreover, countless people had already sensed that there was nothing there. Where did this terrifying spiritual energy come from? At this moment, Han Fei sensed a divine sense scanning this place, and the old turtle reminded him, "Venerable, venerable." Han Fei was well aware of this. At this moment, he looked in the direction of the Trading Valley in shock and shouted, "Kai Ling, let's go. It's going to be chaotic over there." Yu Kailing gritted her teeth and looked at the brawler who had run away. She felt her scalp go numb and thought to herself, "Why are there so many things?" Yu Venerable said, "Let's go. Hurry up." The Venerable scanned and found some broken arrays in the depths of the ruins of the Trading Valley. And in the array, there was a broken sun-moon shell. In the distant void, a seahorse shook its head slightly. That person had just escaped. There was no reason for him to go to the ruins to cause trouble. As for the sun-moon shell, let them grab it. As soon as Han Fei and Yu Kailing arrived at the ruins of the Trading Valley, they found that it was already surrounded by thousands of creatures. There were crabs, lobsters, flood snakes, half-mermaids, sharks, luminous jellyfish, void-breaking conches. Han Fei thought to himself, in this case, the more chaotic it is, the better. He might even be able to retrieve the resources that he had thrown out. After all, no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Normally speaking, whether it was a sea-swallowing seashell or a sun-moon shell, they were not only shells but also represented a space. Although space could also be broken, it was much more difficult to break than ordinary spaces. This sun-moon shell was just an accident, thinking that it was a resource left by the Trading Valley. But at this moment, the arrays were half hidden, and these treasure hunters didn't see the whole picture. They drilled into the holes one by one and drilled into the depths of the ruins. Suddenly, a half-mermaid grabbed a long spear and was about to stuff it into his sea-swallowing seashell when he heard the shrimp soldier yell, "Let go, or I'll stab you to death." The half-mermaid growled, "Opportunities and treasures belong to the fated." Bam! The ice was directly blasted, and an overlord catfish was blasted away, its scales shattered. Seeing that it didn't get the sun-moon shell, the overlord catfish immediately roared, "There is a sun-moon shell stuffed with resources, and the treasures are scattered. Grab it." A sun-moon shell stuffed with resources? Many people were refreshed. The space of a sun-moon shell could reach at least a kilometer. The amount of resources that could be stored inside was much greater. Just the spiritual spring water that was leaking out had already caused a commotion in all directions. Who knew what other treasures were inside? Han Fei was sure that no one would pay attention to it. So, among the thousands of sea creatures, he randomly found a half-mermaid and stabbed it with the void lines. The half-mermaid was refreshed and roared, "Who dares to take it all? Everyone kill him." The half-mermaid controlled by Han Fei rushed into the ruins, and its harpoon pierced the ice with full power. A jellyfish burst out an electric current and roared, "Get lost." A purple sand eel was stabbed with a spear and roared, "You're courting death." Bam, bam, bam. It felt like this place was in a mess. Han Fei and Yu Kaling were thinking about how to deal with it. Yu Kaling was having a headache. They were all troublemakers. How could she deal with them? Bam. Suddenly, the half-mermaid controlled by Han Fei was pierced through by a shrimp soldier. In the shrimp soldier's speechless and horrified gaze, with a bang, the half-mermaid blew itself up. This explosion seemed to have destroyed some of the remaining formations in the ruins. Suddenly, the spiritual energy was abundant. A superior-grade divine weapon flew out from the explosion. "Oh my God, it's a high-quality divine weapon. Catch it." Yu Kaling shouted, "Don't panic. Don't kill it." When Yu Kaling felt that no one was in a good mood, she saw Han Fei take a step forward, condense a big hand in the air, and slap a flood snake away. Then, the water rippled, and a water snake coiled up the high-quality divine weapon and rushed towards Han Fei. Oh! A black giant shark, spewing out strong winds and condensing a big horn on its head, rushed directly at Han Fei. An ice kiss flicked its tail and froze the space within 100 meters around Han Fei. An old turtle shouted, "Let go of the divine weapon." Yu Kaling was shocked. "Yu Hanjia, don't fight now." However, Han Fei roared in a low voice, "All of you stop. Divine weapons belong to those who are virtuous. Look at you. What are you doing?" Cold wind harpoon smashed the tail of the icy kiss with a casual slap. Letting the black giant shark attack, Han Fei pointed his harpoon at the huge turtle shell. Many people were taken aback by the scene. Yu Kaling was also slightly surprised. The giant shark and the old turtle were not weak and both had the strength of a peak-level law enforcer. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come to snatch this high-quality divine weapon. However, they couldn't even shake Han Fei. In an instant, demonic energy surged from Han Fei's body, and his eyes were cold as he launched the sea god strike. Bam! Two cracks appeared on the old turtle's turtle shell. Han Fei grabbed the high-quality divine spear with one hand and shouted coldly, "A bunch of good-for-nothings. It's just a sun-moon shell. You've reached the peak of the sea spirit realm. Don't you think it's better for you to share it?" As he spoke, Han Fei changed the topic. "Since you're fighting for this sun-moon shell, why don't I help you take it?" Suddenly, a long tentacle came from the void, and a big octopus smashed through the ruins. "Don't listen to him. You just want it. If you have the ability, come down and fight me." Han Fei shouted, "Do you think I dare not?" Swish! Yu Kaling quickly appeared beside Han Fei. "Stop all of you. I'm Yu Kaling, the external attendant of the Ice God Gorge and the inspector of the Ice Mountain City. All of you stop." Han Fei really wanted to roll his eyes at her. If you were a Tao-seeking realm demon, someone would definitely listen to you. However, you're also a peak-level sea spirit now. No matter what your identity is, no one will believe you if you don't show it completely. Sure enough, Han Fei shouted, "It's ownerless. Inspector, why do you intervene?" Han Fei's eyes were cunning. There was still a lot of spiritual spring in the sun-moon shell. As long as they fought for it, it would all explode. At that time, the spiritual spring would gush out, the divine weapons would float in the air, and the scene would be chaotic. As an explorer, Han Fei really didn't care about these resources at all. Otherwise, 5 million caddies of spiritual spring wouldn't have exploded so easily. However, just when Han Fei was looking forward to the outbreak of a chaotic battle, the void was suddenly torn apart, and a Tao-seeking realm demon walked out of the void. He first glanced at Yu Kaling and the others, then at Han Fei, and finally at the sea demons who were fighting for the spiritual spring. Han Fei was a little surprised. This Tao-seeking realm demon was a bit strange. He looked like a human. If it weren't for the webbed hands and gills on his neck, Han Fei would definitely think that he was a human. Otherwise, he would be a venerable if he looked like a human. Humph! This person grabbed the Sun Moon shell with a big hand, crossed dozens of barriers, and directly grasped it. At this moment, countless people were shocked to find that a Tao-seeking realm demon was here. Yu Kailing hurriedly cupped her hands. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Wendao." The man looked indifferent. "A bunch of good-for-nothings. Why are you fighting for such a small profit?" With that said, the man looked at Yu Kailing. "And you are the strongest here. You are hesitant and lack means. Go back to the Ice God Gorge first." The man glanced around and finally fixed his eyes on Han Fei. "You are not bad. Why haven't I seen you before?" Han Fei hurriedly cupped his hands. "Mr. Wendao, I have just advanced to the peak-level sea spirit." The man grunted. "You have some strength. Come back to the Ice God Gorge with me." Immediately, this man's voice shook and spread for thousands of kilometers. "The top heavenly talent of the royal city wants to select followers. There were 3 personal attendants and 8 ordinary attendants. The quota is limited. All peak-level sea spirits have a chance. If you want to come to the Ice God Gorge arena quickly." Fix. Chapter 12:17. What Han Fei was upset about was that his plan was ruined by a Tao-seeking realm demon when it was about to stir up a storm. At this moment, Yu Kailing, who had no choice but to take Han Fei and the others to the Ice God Gorge. Han Fei felt it was a pity that he had lost a Sun Moon shell for no reason. It was taken away by the old man just now. Although he used the Sun Moon shell as bait, because this was his own trap, he had plenty of opportunities to snatch the resources back. At the very least, he could control others to snatch the resources back. Not only would he not lose his resources, but he might also cause a war. But now it was all ruined. Before Han Fei asked, someone asked, "Sister Kailing, why did Mr. Wendao show up in person? Is the person from the King City very important?" Someone echoed, "Yes. Isn't Mr. Wendao already at the peak of Tao seeking? Why does he need to show up for such a trivial matter?" Someone said, "That depends on who comes from the King City. Hasn't Mr. Wendao always wanted to go to the King City? Maybe this is an opportunity." Yu Kailing shouted in a low voice, "Okay, don't ask too much about Mr. Wendao. But this time, you can compete for him. If you really follow him, you may have a chance to go to the King City." Someone said in surprise, "Sister Kailing, didn't you come from the King City? Maybe you know the person who comes." Yu Kailing shook her head slightly. "When I was in the King City, I was also humble, and I had no time to meet the real heavenly talents." Han Fei couldn't help but interject, "What is the King City like?" There was absolutely nothing wrong with this question. Han Fei really wanted to know. Not surprisingly, the rest of them should also want to know. Yu Kailing shook her head slightly. "In fact, you all have a beautiful imagination about the King City. In fact, it is not as beautiful as you think. I can only say, if you have a chance to go there in the future, don't compete." Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. "Don't compete? Does this mean that the competition in the Sea Demon King City is very fierce?" Well, come to think of it, the royal city was the dreamland of the sea demons. There were countless sea demons who wanted to go there, and they would definitely fight to the death for it. Han Fei wondered what he could do if he had a chance to go to the Sea Demon King City. He couldn't figure it out. In any case, if he had a choice, if he could steal one, he would definitely do it. However, it was impossible for him to live there. He would rather not go there than live there. He still had to return to Yin-Yang Heaven to fight. He had no time to waste in the Sea Race Royal City in Shuemu Heaven. The Ice God Gorge was a pair of underwater abyssal canyons completely condensed by 10,000-year-old ice. When they arrived at the Ice God Gorge, they felt that the surrounding temperature could freeze not their bodies but their souls. When Han Fei discovered this, he heard Yu Kailing say, "Be careful when you come to the Ice God Gorge for the first time. Don't be careless. The freezing power here can freeze your soul." Someone added, "In the past, the Ice God Gorge was open to sea demons, but people often suffered from frostbite, so creatures below the sea spirit realm were no longer allowed to enter." Han Fei secretly took a breath and couldn't help but say, "In this case, isn't the permanent population of the Ice God Gorge very small?" Yu Kailing said, "Not only us, but also a small number of azure sea blue demons and other sea creatures who have not chosen to transform. Han Fei couldn't help but frown. Yes, on this trip to the Shuemu heaven, he met a large number of sea creatures who had not yet transformed. They could also talk, provoke, and fight. Different from the Yin-Yang heaven, the sea creatures there were either inferior manfish, red demons, or half-mermaids. It seemed that in terms of racial classification, the level of the sea creatures in the Shuemu heaven was much higher than that in the Yin-Yang heaven. Yukaling said, "But there are not many sea creatures here, about 2,000 or so, and the rest don't stay in the Ice God Gorge. Just like you, maybe you didn't choose the Ice God Gorge but chose to travel outside. Many sea demons choose this way, thinking that it is more free outside." Pooh. Han Fei didn't know whether they were free or not, but he almost cursed out loud. Damn it, there were 2,000 sea spirits in the realm of ice and the Ice God Gorge. If they had a passage to the Yin-Yang sky, wouldn't they be invincible? Suddenly, in his mind, the old turtle's voice said, "I feel that there seems to be a secret here. There seems to be something unusual in the deepest part of the ice gorge below." Han Fei asked, "What secret?" The old turtle said, "I can only vaguely feel it. If I want to spy on it, I'm not strong enough with my current strength." Han Fei couldn't help but look down at the huge abyss below. Secret? If there was a chance, wouldn't it have been taken away by a strong master? Why would it still stay here? They flew all the way, and under the leadership of Yukaling, they swam directly to the abyssal chasm of the Ice God Gorge. It was dark all around. When Han Fei swam past, a large area of blue algae suddenly lit up on the ice cliff, and then, like a galaxy spreading all over the sky, the endless blue algae flickered. Han Fei couldn't help but be amazed. In terms of the magnificence of nature and the novelty of life forms, the scenery in the ocean was the best. After diving all the way for more than 20,000 meters, Yukaling took Han Fei to the cliff wall. After this collision, the scene in front of them changed, and colorful light shone. This valley seemed to have been completely hollowed out, and a strange oval-shaped beehive-like building stood in front of them. Because there were too many glowing algae and crystal stones here, the light was like shallow water, and they could see things clearly. The brightness even surpassed that of moonlight. After the tower, there was not much visible space. Except for the caves drilled out of the ice rampart, several ice palaces were printed on the ice. Han Fei only took a glance and knew that there was an illusion formation. As long as they walked in, they should be able to enter the ice and go to the so-called palace. On the ground more than 300 kilometers away, there was an upright fish bone on the ground. It seemed to be a hole, and people could occasionally be seen drilling into it. And the direction that Yukaling took Han Fei and the others to was also that place. Yukaling said, "This is the arena of the Ice God Gorge. It is usually a place where the strong of the Ice God Gorge practice combat skills and fight with each other. Occasionally, they will announce important events here." Someone said nervously, "I have already heard the roars in the arena. Has the selection already begun?" Someone sped up. "I heard that the heavenly talents of the King City are very powerful. I want to see how powerful they are." Just after they arrived at the entrance, someone suddenly perceived, and someone in the air asked, "Who is this person? I've never seen him before." Yukaling said, "Master Qi, this person is called Yuhanjia. Today we happened to meet him, and he broke through to the peak level of Sea Spirit. Later, Mr. Wendao appreciated him and made an exception to let him come here." Mr. Wendao seemed to be in this arena. At this moment, he said to Han Fei via voice transmission, "Don't stop the peak level Sea Spirits who come here today. There is still a group behind." Yes, Mr. Wendao. Han Fei thought to himself, "Fortunately, I've completely become a sea demon. Otherwise, I would be a little panicked if I came to their lair." When they entered the underground cave house and passed through a layer of seals, they suddenly heard waves of dong, dong, dong. In their field of vision, almost all the people of the Ice God Gorge were here. On the periphery of the arena, there were ice platforms protruding from the cliff. Everywhere else seemed to be arenas. At the bottom of the valley, it was like a hot spring valley, with smoke curling up. In the smoke, A half-mermaid who looked very similar to a human stood proudly, holding a red spear in his hand. Beside him, there were 7 people besieging him. His spear light pierced through the void, and the speed of his attack was so fast that ordinary peak-level sea spirits couldn't defend against it at all. Beside Han Fei, someone exclaimed, "So fast!" Yu Kaling gritted her teeth and said, "He has comprehended the close-distance technique." When Yu Kaling spoke, the half-mermaid suddenly raised his head, looked at them, and smiled. The half-mermaid said, "You're quite knowledgeable. You even know the close-distance technique. Just based on this knowledge, all of you can come at me together." Everyone was stunned, including Han Fei. They had just arrived and they were going to fight? Someone else asked, "Sister Kai Ling, do you know him?" Yu Kaling shook her head slightly. "I'm not qualified. Remember, in front of the closed-distance technique, space is never distance." There were 17 people in total, and the half-mermaid below laughed aloud. It turns out to be a guy who didn't pass the trial in the royal city. But since he can go to the royal city to take the trial, he's quite capable. "Okay, come at me together." Han Fei really wanted to go up and slap him. "I've already killed several heavenly talents in the royal city. Why are you pretending to be a big shot here?" Suddenly, a voice sounded in the minds of Han Fei and the others. It seemed to be the voice of Mr. Wendao. The voice said, "You must go all out and don't dare to be careless. This guy is called the Fish Dragon King. It is said that he has the bloodline of the ancient Dragon King and is currently ranked 10th on the heavenly talent list of the Baibei Royal City. Because he was challenged, he had to come out to the front line to prove his strength. If you can follow him, it will be good for you." Han Fei was slightly taken aback. Who was the enemy he encountered during his tribulation? He seemed to be ranked 89th on the heavenly talent list. But this guy happened to be ranked 10th, so there should be a certain gap in strength. Judging from the strength of this peak-level sea spirit, he directly challenged Yu Kaling and the other 17 people. This was enough to show his pride. However, Han Fei was still a little disdainful. Just because he has the bloodline of the ancient Dragon King, he gave himself the name Fish Dragon King? As the saying went, the tacit understanding between men transcended races. According to Han Fei's understanding, this name must be to show off. Otherwise, the value of this name would be meaningless. The Fish Dragon King shouted, "Hurry up, I'm in a hurry. I don't have time to waste here. Come at me together." Yu Kaling whispered, "Go all out, go." At Yu Kaling's order, the 17 people immediately dispersed, and many companion spirits flew in the air. Some people flashed out, and spear light jumped like starlight. The Fish Dragon King smiled disdainfully, touched the spearhead with his foot, and the body of the spear trembled slightly, directly blocking the opponent's ultimate move. In the sky full of attacks, the Fish Dragon King shouted, too slow, and not strong enough." Bam, bam, bam. The spear pierced the void, and many people didn't even know where the spear shadow appeared. They were clearly a kilometer away, but it was as if they were 3 feet in front of the spear. They couldn't even block a single blow. Including Han Fei, he also encountered the spear shadow. However, Han Fei tapped his feet, made a strange footwork, slightly twisted his body, and easily dodged. 64-dimensional fish dragon dance, Han Fei hadn't used it for a long time. This was a divine skill for field combat, most suitable for group battles. When Han Fei easily dodged the Fish Dragon King's attack, at least 7 or 8 people were surprised, including the Fish Dragon King himself. Han Fei immediately realized that he was too careless. How could he deal with the 10th on the heavenly talent list so casually? Therefore, as soon as Han Fei stepped out and dodged the rod, with a crack, Han Fei suddenly covered his waist. What a fast spear technique! My waist? My waist is twisted. Chapter 12:18. No matter what Han Fei said, everyone could see that he had miraculously dodged the Ichthyosaur King's attack. The Ichthyosaur King grinned and stabbed its spear at Han Fei at the speed of lightning. Han Fei was in a dilemma, wondering how he could perform such a difficult battle technique. Looking at the spear that was as fast as lightning, Han Fei's expression turned serious. He clenched his teeth and said, "Forget it, I'm a sky pride. What's wrong with learning some special battle techniques?" Han Fei leaped up and the harpoon in his hand shot out in a spiral. Clang. The harpoon in Han Fei's hand was sent flying, and Han Fei took advantage of the moment when the weapons clashed and flew away. In mid-air, Han Fei waved his hand and the harpoon returned to him, which piqued the interest of many people. Someone chuckled. This kid's reflexes are fast, and his movement technique is quite clever too. He's good at using the displacement technique. The Ichthyosaur King did not hit Han Fei after 2 consecutive attacks. Instead of being surprised, it was happy and said, "Not bad. Looks like there are a few good ones in the outer ocean." 6 Mountains Crumbling Dragon. The Ichthyosaur King swung its spear and a reddish-brown dragon shadow leaped out. Han Fei was slightly surprised when he saw the dragon shadow. It looked very similar to a real dragon. Could this Ichthyosaur King really be of the ancient Dragon King's bloodline? The dragon soared across the 4 seas with a dazzling red light. Its claws slammed down, but it was actually a spear shadow that broke through the void. That slap struck out, and the 3 of them were slapped. Then, it swung its tail and left a white mark in the void. Bang, bang, bang. In the blink of an eye, only 5 people were left out of the 17. This alone was enough to show how powerful the Ichthyosaur King was. Han Fei secretly analyzed. In terms of speed, the Ichthyosaur King was comparable to him in the past. In terms of strength, although it was not as strong as Yang Nanshi, it was still much stronger than Chu Kuangren. When strength and speed were sufficient, the quality of battle techniques and talents of spiritual beasts could only play a supporting role. At this moment, one of them was enforcing the ice power, while the other was enforcing the water cage. The 2 of them worked together and sealed the space at the same time. One of them shouted, "Sister Kai Ling, Yu Cheng, Yu Hanjia, attack." Yu Kailing held the spear in her hand and let out a delicate cry. The image of a manatee appeared and whipped the spear with its tail. The spear was like a nail that pierced directly into the water cage. The half-mermaid named Yu Cheng's body expanded, and black thorns protruded from the surface of his body, turning into long thorns that flickered and pierced into the water too. As for Han Fei, he simply launched a Sea King strike that was not very distinctive. The Fish Dragon King sneered. "Mph. It's just a small trick. Deacon, this kind of useless law enforcement is really too weak." Roar! Bang! The water prisons suddenly exploded, and hundreds of illusory dragon heads rushed out. Bang bang bang! Wherever the dragons had collided, all the attacks were shattered. Even Yu Kailing spat out mouthfuls of blood. But he didn't want to vomit blood. How could he spit out his resplendent golden essence blood just like that? Han Fei stepped on the water in midair, his figure drifting and turning into a series of afterimages, as if he was avoiding the twisting dragon heads. However, with this buffer, Han Fei had enough time to get some fake blood and put it in his mouth. At this moment, except for Yu Kailing and Han Fei, the other 3 were vomiting blood crazily and were no longer able to fight. And among them, Han Fei was the one who looked as if nothing had happened. Swish! In the turbid ice, a spear light pierced through, accompanied by the figure of the Fish Dragon King. "You can block my attacks 3 times. You must not be weak. Take my dragon-fixing spear." Han Fei rolled his eyes, but he tried to twist his body, and the 64-dimensional fish dragon dance couldn't handle it at all. Clank clank clank. Han Fei's figure swayed from side to side, and he could only resist with his harpoon. In the eyes of others, even his magical footwork couldn't help him get out of this awkward situation. Someone shook his head slightly. Although this Yu Hanjia is not weak, he is still no match for the heavenly talents of the royal city. He is much weaker in both speed and strength. Someone chuckled. It's a pity that this Yu Hanjia has just advanced to the peak-level sea spirit realm. Otherwise, he would be much better than you. Someone wondered, why didn't we find such a talent before? Someone laughed. I'm afraid he deliberately hid his strength. Now that he has a chance to go to the royal city, he suddenly revealed his strength. The Dao-seeking state monsters were talking about it, and Mr. Wendao, who looked like a human being, was a little puzzled. This kid's footwork is extremely weird. It seems to be more like a human's footwork, which requires a high mastery of the human body. Is this Yu Hanjia particularly suitable for a human body? Of course, because of the strong demonic energy on Han Fei, no one would suspect his true identity. In the field, Yu Kailing launched 7 spears in a row, which looked like 7 streams of light. However, the Fish Dragon King glanced back, swept its spear, and tried to blow Han Fei away with the tip of the spear. However, when the Fish Dragon King swept the army, Han Fei took advantage of this opportunity to slash with his harpoon, which was as fast as lightning, leaving a streak of fire on the Fish Dragon King's back. Boom! The dragon head phantom bombarded Han Fei and sent him flying. The latter pretended to roll dozens of times on the ground, and then struggled to prop up his body with the harpoon. The next moment, a beam of red light directly pierced through Yu Kailing. The Fish Dragon King said lightly, "You two are not bad, but your strength is a little weak and your speed is not fast enough." While speaking, the Fish Dragon King glanced at Han Fei. "Your speed is not bad, but your strength is not enough. The two of you will follow me for a period of time in the future." Han Fei stood up with a swish and hurriedly cupped his hands. "Yes, my lord." Yu Kailing had a complicated look on her face. Sure enough, she was no match for the real strong. She could only bow at this moment. "Yes, my lord." Because the battle was still going on, Yu Kailing and Han Fei were asked to wait on the side. When the two of them fought side by side, Han Fei exclaimed, "The heavenly talents of the royal city are really strong." Yu Kailing took a deep look at Han Fei. "How did you manage to avoid every attack at such a terrifying speed?" She said leisurely to Han Fei, "I have mastered a law enforcement ability called Sea Demon's Sixth Sense." Yu Kailing asked, "What does it feel like to be in the top 5? Han Fei replied, "Sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch." Cough, cough. While Yu Kailing was dumbfounded, many people looked at Han Fei. "You make it sound so high and mighty, but this is what you mean?" However, Han Fei paused and said, "Sixth sense, commonly known as premonition." On a high platform, Yu Wendao chuckled and thought to himself, "Interesting little guy." The Fish Dragon King stood for a few more battles, and almost no one could rival it. The only guy that was favored was a female half-mermaid, who was chosen because she was beautiful. The Fish Dragon King laughed loudly. "Alright, it's just the 3 of you. As for the others, well, those who can withstand 2 strikes from me just now, come and fight me." Han Fei watched the whole process with a smile without saying anything. This Fish Dragon King gave him the feeling that it was a heavenly talent from a big family in the 1,000-star city. The tone, the arrogance, and the condescending attitude were so similar. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder what kind of place the Sea Race Royal City was. Why was such a heavenly talent of the Sea Race born here? Logically speaking, this Fish Dragon King was not weak. Its real strength should be comparable to Yang Nanshi's, and its speed was faster than Yang Nanshi's, so it should be in the top 5 of the heavenly talent list of the 1,000-star city. However, in Han Fei's eyes, it was very weak. After all, this Fish Dragon King was just a peak-level sea spirit. If Han Fei really wanted to, he could kill it with a finger. It wouldn't even have a place to run. Yu Wendao said indifferently, "Since you've been selected, I'll tell you the truth. This time, your mission is to follow the Dragon King into the 1,000-mountain ancient realm, compete with the Shuemu Heaven and the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, and explore the secrets of this place." The Fish Dragon King said arrogantly, "The reason why I'm taking you is just to make some people feel at ease. In fact, I alone am enough to enter the 1,000-mountain ancient realm. You just need to not hold me back. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." At this moment, a turtle man in turtle shell said in a low voice, "Young Master Dragon King, this trip is very dangerous. Be careful. After all, many heavenly talents have died in the 1,000-mountain ancient realm." The Fish Dragon King smiled disdainfully. "Am I that useless? I heard that in this trip to the ancient realm, the Baibei Royal City, the Shuemu Heaven, and the Blood Sea Divine City will all send their top powerhouses? Yu Wendao suddenly said, "That's not necessarily true. The cause of this incident was Han Fei's tribulation and Yu Chen's Dao. Now that the two of them have successfully passed it, why would the Baibei royal city give up? A long battle is clearly not in the Shuemu Heaven's favor. That's why they can't settle things in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm." The Fish Dragon King frowned. "I don't understand. There are so many living beings in the Shuemu Heaven. Why can't the two royal cities work together to destroy them?" Yu Wendao shook his head slightly. "Of course not. First, although the Baibei Royal City and the Blood Sea Divine City are both sea tribes, we're not on the same path. Moreover, the Shuemu Heaven has accumulated many powerhouses for tens of thousands of years. If we really go all out, the Baibei Royal City and the Blood Sea Divine City will suffer heavy losses. In the end, this is a battle between powerhouses. We've been draining the Shuemu Heaven's strength to prevent them from continuously producing powerhouses." The Tortoise Man echoed, "Young master, if the other party didn't have a strange creature like the Insect Queen, the Waterwood Sky wouldn't be so difficult to deal with. Therefore, you can't underestimate the insect race in the Waterwood Sky." The Fish Dragon King snorted softly, "It's fine. This trip will be a good opportunity to see what the experts of Shuemu Sky and Blood Sea Divine would have become. Remember the last time I came to the front line? I was still in the Sea Demon Realm. By the way, will Han Fei enter the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm?" Yu Wendao pondered for a moment before replying, "The probability is extremely high. This person had just gone through the 4-9 Monarch's tribulation. Whether or not his strength had stabilized was not a question. At a time like this, it was natural for him to cultivate to the peak of the Dao-seeking realm. It's too risky to enter the Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm. Normal people wouldn't choose that." The Ichthyosaur King licked its lips. "What a pity. I heard that Yu Wang Yu, that trash, was killed by a single finger, causing our Baibei Royal City to lose all face. If only that Han Fei was here, I would definitely chop off his head." The tortoise said, "Young master, don't be conceited. Many people are waiting to see you on this trip." The Fish Dragon King smirked. "Then let them have a good look." These chatter were like secrets in the ears of Han Fei and the others. The onlookers were shocked. They were shocked by the so-called Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm. Han Fei frowned. "Is this Ichthyosaur King arrogant? Tisk, I'll kill him first after I sneak into the Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm." Soon, the crowd in the arena dispersed. Only the Ichthyosaur King, Han Fei, Yu Kaling, and a beautiful half-mermaid were left. There were a total of 8 people, all peak-level sea spirits. They were here to protect the Ichthyosaur King. Of course, it was an exaggeration to say that they were here to protect the Ichthyosaur King. With the Ichthyosaur King's strength, except for Han Fei, none of the people here could defeat him. It was more like this guy had found a bunch of thugs for himself. In the eyes of some people, it was natural that they didn't have to do everything themselves. Han Fei thought to himself. The old tortoise suddenly said, "Boy, I have something to discuss with you." Han Fei was confused. "What is it?" The old tortoise said, "Although this little tortoise is weak and only has the strength of a demigod, it shares the same origin as me after all. I can find a chance to kill it. Then I can separate a wisp of my soul and occupy its body." Han Fei, Apex. Chapter 12:19. The Fish Dragon King was here to gain experience, or to gain experience. It looked at Han Fei and the others with an arrogant expression. He said, "I don't care what you were planning to do or what path you took. But if you follow me today, you must be prepared to die at any time. The path I walk is always on the edge of danger. But as long as you don't die, your strength will definitely grow. When I conquer the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, I will bring you back to the royal city. It will be your honor." The others didn't hear it, but the promise to bring them back to the royal city made everyone excited. Han Fei was no exception. He pretended to be energetic, and his eyes glowed. Yu Kaling seemed to be determined. Han Fei knew that she had been to the royal city before, but the process must not have been very smooth. This time, The Fish Dragon King seemed to have ignited a new fighting spirit in her. I pledge my life to follow you, Master. Master, why should we be afraid of death? The beautiful half-mermaid leaned against the Fish Dragon King and said coquettishly, Master Dragon King, I believe that when you return to the royal city, they will definitely look at you in a new light. Ha, you know me. Han Fei looked at the Fish Dragon King and unconsciously put his hand on the girl's shoulder. He thought, how old is this girl? She's still trying to seduce me? Yu Kailing was not as carefree as the girl. After seeing this, she looked away and pretended not to see it. The Fish Dragon King smiled. In that case, Mr. Wendao, when do we set off? The fish asked, tomorrow morning. Prepare some spiritual fruits and resources. The Thousand Mountain ancient realm lacks spiritual energy and energy. The Fish Dragon King smiled at the beautiful half-mermaid. Looks like we have to wait for another day. Forget it, let's go. What's your name? Lan Shui. Master, my name is Lan Shui. The Fish Dragon King nodded slightly. Follow me. I think you're quite strong. I didn't understand something just now. Let's go to your cave abode. The others pretended not to hear it. Han Fei couldn't help but scratch his head. Fuck, how arrogant is this? This is outrageous. Proclaiming that in the day, Han Fei couldn't help but ask in a low voice, why is her surname not Yu? He said this telepathically, but Han Fei deliberately made it so that everyone could hear him. The beautiful half-mermaid's body stiffened slightly and she cursed Han Fei many times in her heart. The others looked at Han Fei speechlessly. After the Fish Dragon King and Lan Shui left, someone secretly gave Han Fei a thumbs up and said, Bro, you're really tough to say that to his face. Han Fei looked confused. No, I'm just curious. Han Fei was just curious. After all, he had never seen a half-mermaid surnamed Lan before. In terms of surnames, there wasn't much difference between the Shuemu heaven and the Yin-Yang heaven. Most of them had the surname Yu as their surname. At that time, a half-mermaid patted Han Fei's shoulder silently. How uncreative! Since the Fish Dragon King had taken a liking to it, it had to be given an elegant name like a human. Only then will it have its own uniqueness. The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. So, he was just deceiving himself? What made Han Fei even more speechless was that this name could be changed at will. Yu Kailing said, in the sea race, no one remembers the weak. When you become strong, whether you have a name or not, someone will remember you. Han Fei was full of disdain. So what if he didn't cultivate his strength? But he was good at picking up girls, just like Zhang Xuanyu. Oh no, Zhang Xuanyu still had some integrity, but this Fish Dragon King didn't. Yu Kailing glanced at Han Fei and said, come back tomorrow. Since you have come to the Ice God Gorge, you can open a cave residence in the Ice God Gorge, preferably on the periphery. Han Fei frowned. Is it the abyssal chasm outside? Someone sneered. It doesn't matter if you want to live there. However, is it uncomfortable to live in the ice cave we are in now? Yu Kailing said, the abyssal chasm outside is a place for training, not a place to live. You can try it. The deeper you go, the stronger the power that can freeze the soul there is. If the venerables don't tell us, none of us will know what is down there. 2 hours later, in this huge chasm of the Glacier Canyon, Han Fei had dived 10,000 meters and had been frozen into an ice block. Mainly because Han Fei knew that someone was observing him, he didn't dare to continue diving deeper, otherwise his aptitude would be too abnormal. In his mind, Han Fei said, how about it? Can you feel what it is now? This power is really terrifying. It can even freeze the soul. The old turtle pondered and said, I can't feel it. Although my soul is damaged now, it shouldn't be blocked by an ordinary secret place. This shows that the threat here has reached above the venerable realm. Don't think about it now. Han Fei curled his lips. Humph! The venerable realm? I would have gone home at that time. The old turtle said, it's not that you can't come back in the future. Han Fei thought about it. Forget it. Anyway, he was in someone else's territory. Even if there was really something good here, it shouldn't fall into his hands. However, just when Han Fei was about to leave, his eyebrows suddenly trembled. He felt that little black and little white wanted to come out. Han Fei's expression didn't change. As he went back, he wondered, why did Little Black and Little White react? Of course, Han Fei couldn't directly call Little Black and Little White out here. After all, this was not his territory. Sure enough, when Han Fei just returned to the abyss, he saw Yu Wendao looking at him quietly. When Han Fei went into the abyssal chasm, he had already known that someone was watching him, but what was wrong with satisfying his curiosity? If it weren't for someone watching him, he wouldn't have only dived 10,000 meters. Han Fei hurriedly cupped his hands. Nice to meet you, Mr. Wendao. Yu Wendao stepped to Han Fei's side, then looked down at the extremely dark chasm and said, How do you feel down there? Han Fei looked a little reserved and replied stiffly, Cold. Yu Wendao smiled slightly. Young man, you have hidden a lot of strength, haven't you? Han Fei was slightly surprised. Was he seen through so easily? The humanoid old man who looked like an old pedant smiled faintly. It's not difficult to guess. Mortals all have pride. Some show it on their faces, and some hide it in their hearts. However, sometimes these things can't be hidden. Occasionally, a little inadvertent movement will often expose them. Of course, this also depends on others noticing you. Han Fei didn't speak. He didn't know what this man was thinking. Why would a peak-level Dao-seeking realm expert chat with him? Yu Wendao asked, What do you think of the Fish Dragon King's strength? Seeing that his trick was seen through, Han Fei relaxed a little and replied seriously, Very strong. Yu Wendao smiled faintly. How long can you last in his hands? Han Fei was just about to speak when the old turtle in his body said, Tell me more. Han Fei thought of something and also smiled faintly. Mr. Wendao, are you so sure of my strength? Yu Wendao said calmly, Others may not be sure, but I have a good eye for people. Since I asked you, I have already considered your strength. Han Fei gasped. If the Fish Dragon King is only in the realm he showed today, I can last for 100 minutes without being defeated. 100 minutes was a very vague concept. For two people with similar strength, let alone 100 minutes, it was possible for them to fight for a day and a night. However, a figure like the Fish Dragon King did have the right to be arrogant. Its strength was indeed not weak, and its speed was indeed fast. If this was the standard, 99% of the Sea Clan's experts in the same realm as him would be defeated. Yu Wendao's eyes flashed and he said, That's good. Yu Hanjia, it's a pity that you have been hiding for too long and only came to my attention now. Otherwise, your life would have been changed. Han Fei was surprised. Why does this sound so much like a bluff? Yu Wendao continued, My name only appears in the Ice God Gorge. You probably haven't heard of me before. Do you know why I chose the Ice God Gorge and why I'm called Dao-seeking? Han Fei shook his head blankly. I'd like to see what your purpose is. He said, There is a great horror under the abyss of the Ice God Gorge. The reason why I stay in the Ice God Gorge is very simple. I just want to strengthen my Dao through the power of the frozen soul. In the Dao-seeking state, the stronger the Dao is, the stronger the Dao is. I've been suppressing my Dao in the Dao-seeking state. In order to understand the Dao-seeking state and pave the way for future generations, I wrote the Book of Changes. However, I haven't been able to find a successor. It's a pity. Han Fei laughed in his heart. The old turtle also said in Han Fei's mind, Bullshit. The Dao in this man's body is chaotic. Only he has the Dao-seeking state. Bah, even I don't dare to be so shameless. This man is really shameless. Han Fei was even more amused. I don't believe that there are people who are silent and selfless in this ocean world where the strong prey on the weak. Just by listening to Yu Wendao's bragging, Han Fei knew that this man's purpose was not simple. He even wanted to bluff him. But Han Fei looked very serious on the surface. Lord Wendao cares about the Sea Clan, and I'm touched. However, why did you come to me? Although I think I'm not bad, compared to the Fish Dragon King, I'm still far behind. Yu Wendao's face turned slightly cold. Of course, if I could use the Fish Dragon King, would I come to you? Yu Wendao's face darkened. There are only a few people who can catch my eye. If I didn't notice that you are talented, I wouldn't want to accept you as my successor. As he said, Yu Wendao didn't seem to be in a hurry. He handed a jade slip to Han Fei. But he said, "Not everyone can become my successor. Not everyone can cultivate this technique. Try it. If you can't do it, I won't accept you." Chapter 12:20. Han Fei held a jade slip in his hand and sneered in his heart. "Are you pretending to be mysterious? Those are all my leftovers." He scanned with his perception and information popped up in his mind. Book of Changes, Venerable Level, Low Quality, Incomplete, Introduction. Someone observed more than 100 great Daos and tried to fuse them into one. However, there were 3,000 Daos, each with different origins, and this technique forced them to be combined. This book focuses on the Tao of sacrifice. Cultivators can sacrifice their souls to obtain 100 marvelous methods. Deduced art, unknown deduction cost, 0/100 million note. When this technique is mastered, the cultivator will become a puppet. Fuck, Han Fei didn't know what to say at that time. This Yu Wendao was so vicious that it couldn't be any blacker. If this person doesn't die, I won't be able to rest easy. Han Fei said in his heart, "This person looks like an old pedant, but I've never seen such a vicious person in my life. This time, it's either him or me. Old Turtle, when are we going to work together to kill this guy first?" The old turtle said leisurely, "At least we can't do it here. And although this person's Daos are mixed, he is definitely not weak in the Dao-seeking realm. I'm not strong enough to kill him without him knowing." Han Fei was speechless. "Wait a minute, you are also an emperor. You can't even kill a semi-venerable?" "Who?" the old turtle said angrily. "How dare you say that? I'm just a soul, and I came out incomplete. More than half of my Daos were swallowed by this gourd, and even my Daos were taken by you to be refined into meridians. I should be thankful that I'm still alive. Do you want me to kill a semi-venerable without anyone knowing?" Han Fei felt a little guilty. The old turtle did seem to be quite miserable. However, Han Fei didn't believe that he didn't have any capital. Han Fei immediately said, "You can have the little turtle next to the fish dragon king." The old turtle was speechless. "Do you think it's an ordinary peak-level Dao-seeking cultivator? It's also a semi-venerable. If we join hands, we can only fight one at most. If the two of them attack together, it's a problem whether we can escape or not." Han Fei curled his lips. "Then what do you think I should do? Should I still practice this stupid technique?" Suddenly, Han Fei thought of something. What would happen if the old turtle practiced the Tao of Changes? Could Yu Wendao win against the old turtle? Han Fei immediately pointed at the jade slip and said, "Look at it yourself. I don't think anyone can practice this technique except you." The old turtle sneered and thought to himself, "How can I cultivate this broken thing?" However, when the old turtle swept out with his perception, he immediately shouted, "This is simple. This person's understanding of the great Tao isn't even a billionth of this emperor's. Let this emperor test him a bit and squeeze him dry." Han Fei clenched his ass. "No, I'm going to exploit you. It has nothing to do with me." The old turtle. That night, Han Fei dug a cave house for himself in the ice cave of the Ice God Gorge and openly sealed the entrance of the cave, regardless of what others thought. At this moment, Yu Wendao was secretly looking at the cave house that Han Fei opened, nodding from time to time and murmuring, "Sure enough, this kind of inexperienced boy is easy to fool. As long as I borrow the power of the great Tao in the future, I can slowly deprive his soul. At that time, we can easily seize his body, and stepping into the Tao will be a piece of cake." Yu Wendao was thinking about the future, and Han Fei was asking, "How is it? Have you cultivated it?" The old turtle said, "Not so fast. If you succeed in cultivating it immediately, doesn't it prove that you are more talented than the fish dragon king?" Han Fei curled his lips. "But I really want to kill that guy as soon as possible." Until the next morning, Han Fei suddenly felt a wisp of strange power being absorbed into his body, and he suddenly opened his eyes. What power? Han Fei could clearly sense that this power did not fall on him but was directly absorbed by the old turtle. Hee hee. The old turtle smiled coldly. "Interesting. It turns out that this person is planning to use this method to make others sacrifice their souls so that he can easily possess them. Han Fei knew this, but he still asked, "So, you sacrificed yourself?" "How can I be called sacrificing myself? I took the initiative to project a wisp of my soul over, but how can my soul be so easy to swallow?" Han Fei frowned and couldn't help but ask, "Can you use this method to get out of my sea of consciousness?" The old turtle's voice immediately sank. "How can a mere semi-venerable bear my soul? Besides, if this emperor were to sacrifice my entire divine soul, this gourd would probably eat this emperor." Han Fei said with a smile, "Don't pretend. You can definitely get out part of it. Don't you want to separate a wisp of your soul and occupy the turtle next to the fish dragon king? This one is not weak, is it? It should be stronger than that one. Isn't that more to your liking?" The old turtle sneered. "What do you know? That turtle belongs to my clan. It's natural for me to use it. I know how to inherit the Taoist connotation with my body. But this person's Taoist connotation is chaotic and my body is useless. Otherwise, how could he think of this method of possession?" Han Fei grinned. "It doesn't matter. Anyway, with this method, you can at least get out part of your soul. Kill this fish first, then kill the turtle, and then kill the rest of the peak-level sea spirits. I won't panic at all." Han Fei thought that no matter how the old turtle complained to him, he was definitely not as weak as he said. But this old turtle must be afraid of the demon purification pot. Although they had an agreement now, Han Fei was still suspicious of this thing, which seemed a little too casual. Now that this opportunity had come, he might as well let the old turtle kill this fish first, and he could even cooperate with it to get the body of the turtle man. As for the old turtle wanting to kill him, he didn't believe it at all. Most of his soul was still locked in his body. What could he do? Han Fei's eyes suddenly flickered. If the old turtle could possess the body of the turtle man, then he could go to the so-called Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm to kill the Fish Dragon King and replace it. The old turtle seemed to know what Han Fei was thinking and immediately said, "That's good. We don't have to be suspicious of each other. Fine, if I have a body and join hands with you, no one in the same realm can be our opponent." Han Fei grinned. "Let's go to the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm first and then replace it. Ice God Gorge, hee, I will come back sooner or later." Han Fei only had one purpose to return to the Ice God Gorge, which was to find out what was under the abyssal canyon and why it attracted Little Black and Little White's attention. If it weren't for the fact that this was a place where strong masters lived, Han Fei really wanted to go down now. At this moment, Yuan Dao was a little dumbfounded. He guessed that Han Fei's strength should not be weak, and his soul should not be much weaker. However, in just one night, the quality of the soul that Han Fei sacrificed was astonishingly high. However, there seemed to be something wrong with this extremely high-quality soul. It was a bit too dark. It was he who swallowed this soul, but why did he have an extreme desire for power? Yuan Dao's first thought was that Han Fei was too eager for power, so the pursuit of power in his soul had reached an extreme point. Yuan Dao smiled faintly. "It turns out that this is the real you. But it's better this way. The more you pursue power, the more you need my power." Hee. The next morning, Han Fei saw the Fish Dragon King walking over from afar with Lan Shui, in high spirits, while the old tortoise man stood quietly on an ice platform, waiting. In addition to Han Fei, there were actually nearly 200 peak-level law enforcers waiting here. It seemed that they were going to go together. Han Fei was slightly surprised. "There are quite a lot of people going. Isn't it just the Fish Dragon King and me going?" Yuan Dao's voice sounded on the ice platform. "Everyone, enter the teleportation array. You can go." Han Fei glanced and saw that Yuan Dao seemed to be fine. "Old turtle, why is he not hurt at all?" The old turtle said, "Haste makes waste. This stupid technique can only sacrifice a little soul at a time. Otherwise, I would have eaten him already." Han Fei pondered and said, "Then when we leave the Ice God Gorge, sacrifice a few more times and eat him early. We have to separate from him first. There's no hurry. Aren't you going to the secret realm? After you go in, don't kill the Fish Dragon King first. Wait until I eat you Wendao first. Han Fei was stunned. Does it matter? The old turtle said, these two people must be protecting the fish dragon king. If he dies and they find out, what will happen? Han Fei nodded slightly. But then let's go to the Thousand Mountain ancient realm first and act according to the situation. The fish dragon king had a good night. At this moment, he glanced at Han Fei and the others lazily. What are your names? Yu Kailing said, Master, Yu Kailing. Han Fei said, Yu Hanjia. The fish dragon king frowned slightly because Han Fei didn't address him respectfully. However, he didn't take it seriously. At most, he would throw him out to take care of the fish dragon king for a while. Thinking of this, the fish dragon king walked up to the ice platform with his head held high. He shouted in a low voice, let's go. Follow me to the ancient realm. Han Fei curled the corner of his mouth. You can only show off for a few more days. Hee. Yu Kailing glanced at Han Fei and was a little confused. This Yu Hanjia doesn't seem to respect the fish dragon king very much. Han Fei and the others followed him to the ice platform. There was a large teleportation array there, but they didn't know where it led to. Before entering the teleportation array, Yu Wendao glanced at Han Fei with an ambiguous smile. Han Fei thought, what are you looking at? I'll let you live for 2 more days at most. This old man is so evil. You want to take my body with a technique? Dream on. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 12:21. Han Fei thought he would be teleported to the entrance of some secret realm, but with a swoosh he returned to the fire spring. Han Fei wanted to explore the outer sea, but for some reason he kept wandering around the ice realm. At this moment, everyone stood in the air above the Inferno Spring. They realized that this place was completely empty. There was no one here. The fish dragon king was confused. Did they all go to the front line? Yu Wendao shook his head slightly. In the past few days, the earth string of the fire spring was attacked by Shuemu Tian. Then, a Dao-seeking state trader appeared in the Ice God Gorge and plundered the fire spring. Everyone is panicking. Those who didn't go to the front line should have gone to Ice Mountain City. The fish dragon king curled his lips. Traitor! Such creatures don't exist in the royal city. Let's go to the Thousand Mountain ancient realm. Along the way, Yu Wendao and Prime Minister Turtle were escorting them. If there were no accidents, it shouldn't be just them going to the Thousand Mountain ancient realm. Yu Wendao explained to the Ichthyosaur King, Dragon King, you have to remember one thing. You're not the only one who came to the royal city. You should know who you should trust and who you shouldn't. A fierce look flashed in the fish dragon king's eyes. Of course, I know very well. Just because I'm ranked 10th on the prodigy roll, there are many people who covet my position. But it doesn't matter. Let's settle this once and for all. It'll save us trouble in the future. As he spoke, Yu Wendao glanced at them and continued, the Thousand Mountain ancient realm is said to be an ancient realm. Some people also call it the Lost World. In a sense, it can't even be considered a secret realm because there are only endless immortal souls and strange demon plants. Because it's sealed all year round, there are a lot of treasures there. It can be said that the worst treasures there are divine weapon materials. However, the spiritual chi and energy there are relatively sparse, so you have to prepare some spiritual fruits before you go in. You should have enough of those. Of course, although there are a lot of treasures, you have to be alive to take them. Also, there was something that had to be mentioned. If there was anyone here who could display the power of the Dao-seeking realm, they had to be careful. There was no rule suppression. Whoever uses the power of the Dao-seeking realm might encounter some inexplicable misfortune, or be targeted by the great Dao of the Thousand Mountains ancient realm. The Ichthyosaur King let out a disdainful laugh. Mr. Wendao, it's just a mystical ground. What's there to explain? The most dangerous ones are the people inside. The geniuses of the 4 clans from the Waterwood Sky and the bewitching idiots from the Blood Sea Divinewood City. The old tortoise man added, Young Master Dragon King, you have to be careful. After all, every clan has their own peerless geniuses. Take that Han Fei for example. He killed so many geniuses of my monarch city in one battle. He cannot be underestimated. The Ichthyosaur king said impatiently, it's not like he can enter the 1,000-mountain ancient realm. Besides, he would have to suppress his cultivation if he went. Peak Sea Spirit, do you think I'm afraid of him? When have I, the Fish Dragon King, been afraid of anyone in the same realm? The Ichthyosaur king didn't care at all. He even looked back and said, after you enter, kill anyone from the waterwood sky. If you find a school of fiery red singing fish or a seductive woman wearing a red gauze dress, kill them all for me. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Wasn't the Ichthyosaur king talking about the Millennium Snapper? Han Fei couldn't help but feel excited. 2 monarch cities and the waterwood sky. 3 forces exploring the same place. There would probably be a bloodbath. The Fish Dragon King said leisurely, treasure hunting and hunting are one thing. Rumor has it that the 1,000-mountain ancient realm has the foundation to become a monarch. Although no one has ever seen it, you can give it a try. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Another opportunity to become a monarch? Let's see who gets it when we kill our way through that damn place. For hours later, the place where the ice domain and the Sea of Flames bordered was not near the Wall of Flames. Instead, it was a sea with a mild climate. In the seawater, there were cold currents and warm currents intersecting. As a result, they became a gentle warm current that washed the area. Han Fei perceived that there were thousands of people standing in different camps at the place where the currents converged. Han Fei didn't dare to spread his perception too early, so he immediately withdrew his perception as soon as it swept past. A few minutes later, when Han Fei and the others arrived at the place where the currents converged, he didn't look at the waterwood sky first. Instead, he looked at the large group of women in red. Yes, there were no men. They were all women. And they were all wearing seemingly thin clothes, as if the clothes would slip off their shoulders at any time. Han Fei looked around and soon found a woman among the group of women in red that he couldn't forget, Yang Ruiyun. When Han Fei heard that the Blood Sea Divinewood city was full of big red trunks, he already knew where Yang Ruiyun and the others had gone. Where else could it be other than the waterwood sky? And this Blood Sea Divine would seem to be a special royal city independent of the waterwood sky and the Baibei royal city. For example, the Fish Dragon King didn't like the people of the Blood Sea Divinewood city at all and threatened to kill all those in red clothes. Han Fei found that Yang Ruiyun seemed to be a person with great luck. In just a few years, he had gone through a lot of hardships to get to where he was today. But Yang Ruiyun had become a peak-level sea spirit in the blink of an eye. Interesting. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. He hadn't seen Yang Ruiyun for many years, and now she was no match for him at all. Han Fei suddenly thought of something. It was a pity that when he was in the level 3 fishery, he dug out a book from the big red trunks. It was a pity that the demon purification pot cleared it up during the tribulation. Otherwise, that thing would be of great use now. Of course, Han Fei didn't panic. That thing was evil, and as soon as it was taken out, it was full of demonic energy. Now that he had 2 sea-quelling bizarre treasures, he was no longer what he used to be. As if noticing Han Fei's gaze, Yang Ruiyun tilted her head and looked at him. However, unlike in the script, not only did Han Fei not move his eyes away, but there was even a weird smile on his lips. Yang Ruiyun frowned. For some reason, that person didn't seem to give her a good feeling. Next to her, someone said, "Ruiyun, that half-mermaid seems to have a crush on you?" Yang Ruiyun snorted. What an inferior bloodline. Someone chuckled. If I give it to you, I don't believe you won't drink it. The Fish Dragon King suddenly looked at Han Fei. Don't look at it. It's beautiful but will still kill it. The Blood Sea Divinewood city has always been at odds with our Baibei royal city. Those blood demons will bewitch you, swallow your blood, and absorb your soul. Don't be blinded by their beauty. Han Fei was puzzled. Did the Millennium Snapper have this ability? However, he still responded first, "You're right, Master Dragon King." Han Fei glanced at Yang Ruiyun one last time and then looked at the Shuemu Heaven. On the Shuemu Heaven side, there were people from all 4 clans. In this trip to the 1,000-mountain ancient realm, the Shuemu Heaven had the most peak-level law enforcers, followed by the Insect Clan, and then the Sky Clan. However, among the remaining tree demons, there were a few little tree men that caught Han Fei's attention. Normal tree demons were mostly in the shape of trees, but the roots under their feet were like legs, so they weren't slow at all. If they were on the ground, they could still drill into the ground, but they could drill many times faster than you. However, among the group of less than 100 tree demons, Han Fei found 3 thin little tree men with only a few leaves on their bodies, which looked like normal humans. These little tree men gave Han Fei the feeling that they were very similar to the little tree men in the deep-sea jungle in the level 2 fishery in the Blue Sea town. Oh no, not similar, but exactly the same. Wow! Han Fei thought to himself that he hadn't stayed in the Shuemu heaven for long, and there were many creatures that he hadn't seen yet. Since there were little tree men in the Blue Sea town, what did it mean? Why were there little tree men in the heavenly water village? Was there really only one demonic forest channel in the Inyang heaven that could connect to the Shuemu heaven? In fact, Yang Ruoyun's appearance had already revealed the answer to Han Fei. The seaborne grassland in the level 3 fishery could also connect to the Shuemu heaven. It could be seen that there might be many places connecting the two places, but most people didn't know about them. In the crowd, Han Fei also saw Xu Xiaoman. She was now fully armed, holding an eagle bow, with a saber on her waist and a serious look on her face. The only thing that didn't seem too serious was the insects lying all over the ground. There were one-horned longhorn beetles, golden tortoise beetles, blade centipedes, blue-eyed mantises, and ghost-eyed spiders. Anyway, the insect clan gave Han Fei a creepy feeling, as if there were countless species in their race. Because there were so many species, it was hard to defend against them in a fight. God knew what special abilities these different insects had. Han Fei glanced around and found that there seemed to be only about 1,000 people from the Shuemu heaven, while at least 1,000 people from the 2 royal cities had come. Their purpose seemed to be very clear, which was to kill most of the people on the Shuemu heaven side. It would be best if they could kill all of them. They were all the backbone forces of the Shuemu heaven. Of course, the Shuemu heaven didn't want their peak-level law enforcers to die in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, so they sent as few as possible. However, before Han Fei could see where the experts were, he heard someone chuckle. "Oh, isn't this the Dragon King? We all thought you would go directly to the Dark War port. Why did you go to the Realm of Ice instead?" The one who spoke was a male half-mermaid who looked more handsome than the Fish Dragon King. The Fish Dragon King's face immediately darkened. "Yu Hong, you should know your place first. Don't think that just because you came out to travel with me, you really think highly of yourself." A woman in a green dress floated on the surface of the sea and looked at the Fish Dragon King with a smile. "Dragon King, many people are watching you. I hope you can maintain your pride and keep your 10th place on the prodigy list." The Fish Dragon King's face darkened. "Shui Hong Yen, don't interrupt. Otherwise, I will definitely go to your shell as a guest in the future." Pumph. The clam girl's face turned cold. "You should keep your position first." Han Fei couldn't help but glance at the Fish Dragon King. "Good lord, it seems that there are a lot of enemies." Buzz. Buzz. Before the Fish Dragon King and the others could bicker, a peak-level explorer walked out of the void. Han Fei knew the people from the human clan. Maybe because of Yu Chen's breakthrough, there were 2 peak-level explorers from the Flying Feather clan in this trip. Han Fei had met Lu Lihan a few times. As for the Zerg clan, Han Fei's pupils suddenly constricted. Lu Lihan and a few others came from the human clan. Cardinal and a few other big birds came from the Sky clan. A cross-eyed spider came from the Zerg clan. An old tree came from the tree demons. The appearance of the others might have been a coincidence, but the appearance of the old tree made Han Fei's heart skip a beat. "Isn't this the old tree I saw when I first came to the Shuemu heaven? Isn't this old tree supposed to guard the outer gate of the demonic forest channel? Why did it come here today? Why did it come here?" At that moment, Han Fei seemed to have guessed something. Someone had guessed that he was among the sea demons, so they deliberately let the powerhouses of the Shuemu heaven that he knew lead the team. What kind of message was this? Suddenly, Han Fei saw a young tree man who was looking around. Young tree man had been following him for 2 days, so she should be the one who knew him best. Therefore, if there was anything, he could ask Young Tree Man directly after entering the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 12:22. Han Fei quickly calculated in his heart. Only the Life Queen knew that he could blend in with the sea demons. Han Fei didn't know why the Life Queen knew. In Han Fei's opinion, it didn't make sense. Why did the Life Queen know that he could blend in with the sea demons? He was a half-mermaid through and through. The venerable token? Han Fei suddenly remembered that Jing Er's venerable token was still with him. Yes, it must have leaked his whereabouts, causing the Life Queen or Jing Er to notice what he did in the sea outside the realm of outer ice. However, Han Fei was still a little confused. From the moment he went to sea, he had thrown the venerable token into Forge the Universe. How could it still sense his location? Was this a fucking GPS? When the explorers came out of the battlefield one by one, the venerable realm powerhouses slowly cut through the void and walked out. Han Fei's first reaction was Wushang Shui. If it was her, it would further prove his judgment. They knew that he was among the sea demons. Sure enough, as Han Fei expected, he saw Wushang Shui and Jing Er walking out of the void together. On the Shuemu Heaven side were Wushang Shui and Jing Er, and on his side were a clam girl, a half-mermaid, and a mermaid. On the Blood Sea Divine Wood side, it was two twin sisters, both at the venerable realm, wearing crimson clothes. Han Fei didn't know why they loved red. In addition, Han Fei was also very puzzled. How did the Blood Sea Divine Wood reproduce when other families could reproduce? Why did they all become women? Also, when he was fighting under the big red trunk in the level 3 fishery, women were not the only ones who turned into Millennium Snappers. Many men also turned into Millennium Snappers. Could it be that when they came to the Shuemu Heaven, some strong masters found out that they were men, so they killed them all? Jing Er shouted, "Someone from the Shuemu Heaven just passed a tribulation and entered the Tao. You want to challenge the Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm for such a trivial matter? Do you really think the Shuemu Heaven is a pushover?" On Han Fei's side, the Mermaid Venerable said indifferently, "The Shuemu Heaven will be defeated by the Sea Clan sooner or later. You will eventually belong to them. Don't say that your Shuemu Heaven has another King Tier talent, but that person has to have the opportunity to become a King Tier. You've been quiet for so long, aren't you still a supremacy?" Peaceful bared her teeth. "Say that again. Do you believe that I will chop off your tail and make it into a hot pot?" Everyone was confused. What was a hot pot? However, no one cared about this. How could ordinary people interrupt when a venerable one was speaking? The half-mermaid venerable chuckled. "Serenity, to be honest, whether this battle happens or not, the Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm will open sooner or later. Furthermore, we are already used to your Waterwood Sky's daily defeats. I'm just surprised that nearly 300 of you humans have come. That's rare," the clam girl said softly. "In the past, half of them were occupied by the insect race. Do you think that the human race has produced two geniuses?" Wushang Shui glanced at Han Fei and the others coldly. "Humph, you will regret looking down on the human race." Peaceful echoed, "Yes, it's hard to say who will die in the Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm this time." Giggle. The Blood Sea Divine would chuckled cheerfully. Jing Er, Wushang Shui, and the venerables on Han Fei's side all frowned. None of them seemed to like the women on the Blood Sea Divine Wood City's side. One of the twin sisters said, "It's so interesting to watch you bicker. Why don't you join us in the Blood Sea region?" Another person added, "That's right. We have plenty of red balls in the Blood Sea region. You can become a good girl in the Blood Sea region after eating them." Many people shivered slightly, including Han Fei. The red ball was the kind of fruit that grew on the big red trunk for 10,000 years. Some creatures could be eaten, and some couldn't. As far as Han Fei could see, only special creatures like the hexagon starfish could eat them, but human beings would turn into Millennium Snappers after eating them. As he expected, a half-mermaid venerable from the Baibei royal city snorted. "Shuron, Shueshin, you'd better behave yourself. Otherwise, Don't blame the Baibei royal city for sealing the Blood Sea region. How arrogant. You can try. Girls, apart from those insects, everything else is your target. If you run into an opportunity, your first target will still be the opportunity. The two venerables echoed each other, not caring about other people's gazes at all. On the insect clan side, a fire cockatrice insect buzzed. What do you mean? Can't we, the Zerg, eat your blood? Boys, these women look down on us. Let's eat them after we enter the Thousand Mountains ancient realm. As the more simple-minded Zergs, most of them agreed. A one-horned longhorn beetle said solemnly, I can stab a few of them with my big horn. A centipede stood up. I can cut them into thin slices. A spider tapped its steel claws. I really want to hang them up and make a nest. Because they had been provoked, the entire Zerg race, which was close to 400 people, started buzzing. Everyone was annoyed by the noise. At first, they could understand it. In the end, there was a lot of buzzing noises. God knew what they were buzzing about. Sure enough, faced with the restlessness of the insects, the twin sisters immediately snorted. Okay, there are less than 5,000 people on the three sides, but it's enough. Don't clamor here. On the Baibei royal city's side, a venerable said to everyone via voice transmission, everyone, listen up. Whoever kills one Shuemu Tian will be rewarded with a mid-quality divine weapon, 5,000 kilograms of spiritual spring, and a heaven-level high-quality combat skill. If you kill one blood demon, you will be rewarded with a low-quality divine weapon, 100,000 kilograms of spiritual spring, and a heaven-level high-quality combat skill. Hearing this, Han Fei was shocked. Wow, they're really going all out. There were nearly 3,000 people on this side, including the blood demon. If they were all killed, wouldn't the one-time reward be tens of millions of kilograms of spiritual spring? Also, no matter how worthless the mid-quality and low-quality divine weapons were, there were still thousands of them. Han Fei seemed to see hope. No, I have to have a share of it. As expected, the rewards offered by the other two sides should be similar. Han Fei and the others only felt the impact of the airwaves, and they all backed off. Yu Wendao said to those who came from the Ice Realm, after entering, if you have any trump cards, don't hide them. Use them all. Those who can come to the Thousand Mountain ancient realm won't be weak. The Turtle Prime Minister glanced at Han Fei and the others. After entering, listen to young Master Dragon King's command. If anyone is weak and dares to act recklessly, the others can kill them directly. I will reward them. Han Fei was threatened just like that. Han Fei also noticed that the two people who provoked the Fish Dragon King before were looking at him coldly. If he guessed correctly, they were going to attack the Fish Dragon King in the Thousand Mountain ancient realm. The Fish Dragon King seemed to know what these people were thinking. It snorted and didn't care at all. Rumble, the sky was covered by dark clouds. In the blink of an eye, thunder rumbled and heavy rain poured. On the surface of the sea, a circular vortex slowly rose. Then, a huge vortex appeared, and in the vortex, a circle of huge white teeth appeared. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Were those fucking teeth? There were 3 circles in total, and it looked extremely creepy. It was as if they were jumping into the mouth of a sea monster. Go in. 3 parties at the same time. Hurry. Remember, the exit will be closed in 3 days. The Fish Dragon King shouted in a low voice, Follow me. When we return, you will all be greatly rewarded. The group of people responded one by one, We swear to follow the Dragon King until death. Han Fei glanced at Yang Ruoyun and then at Young Man. In the end, he saw Yu Wendao giving him a deep look. Han Fei didn't change his expression, as if he didn't see Yu Wendao's look. However, Yu Kailing, who was also the Fish Dragon King's follower, frowned and looked at Han Fei deeply. She felt that Han Fei was a bit strange, but she couldn't tell what was strange. As for the other follower, Lan Shuer, she didn't even notice Han Fei and Yu Kailing. She kept sticking to the Fish Dragon King, as if she was afraid that the Fish Dragon King would run away. Swish, swish, swish. The 3 parties entered the big mouth, one after another. As soon as they entered, Han Fei felt his body turn over, and then his eyes lit up. Then he appeared on the sea, Han Fei's first glance was not to see where the thousands of people had gone, but to see a group of mountains in the distance, towering above the sea. Most of these mountains were half submerged in the sea, and the other half protruded above the sea. Some were high, and some were low. Between the mountains there were many visible gaps. Han Fei couldn't help but gasp. There was another world hidden here? However, Han Fei felt that it seemed a bit familiar. The old turtle said, "Have you found that there is not much spiritual energy and energy in this world? It is also lacking vitality and shrouded in the air of death. Especially on those mountains, the air of death is very strong." While Han Fei was thinking about this problem, he suddenly heard the Fish Dragon King roar, "Come here!" Swish, 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 swish. At this moment, the three parties quickly gathered together. The first one was the Blood Demon. A Blood Demon chuckled and said, "If you want to fight, just fight. We're leaving." He had to admit that the Blood Demon camp, which was made up of all women, was very smart. Knowing that the relationship between the Baibei Royal City and the Shuemu Heaven was very bad, they chose to retreat as soon as they met. They had plenty of time to hunt. They didn't have to rush. Han Fei quickly came behind the Fish Dragon King, only to hear the old turtle suddenly say, "This Thousand Mountains ancient realm is sealed by the Great Way, and the strength of those who enter is limited to the level of law enforcer. Wait, if you can fool the Great Way, you can temporarily use the power of an explorer." Han Fei paused. If the old turtle didn't remind him, he would have forgotten that he was an explorer. He was an explorer. How did he sneak into a secret realm of the law enforcer level? The third chapter? I didn't break out during the Dragon Boat Festival, and I couldn't break out. I worked overtime during the holidays, and I worked overtime during the weekends. More importantly, I couldn't keep up with the speed of the updates. End of this chapter. Chapter 12:23. Chirp. A big bird flew across the sky and shouted, "Get ready to fight." A bug buzzed and roared, "Get ready to eat these man-fish." On the sea demon's side, some people left without looking back. Among them, the clam girl who provoked the Fish Dragon King just now said, "Fish Dragon King, you are the strongest here. You can't be afraid to fight." Giggle. Yu Kaling immediately reminded, "Master Dragon King, don't be provoked by words." The guy named Yu Hong smiled and said, "Fish Dragon King, let's have a competition. Who can kill more enemies when we go out?" The Fish Dragon King's face darkened. "Let's compete then. Yu Hong, you brat, don't think I don't know what you're thinking. Do you think you're worthy enough to take my place? Don't even think about it." On the side of the Waterwood Heaven, 300 human beings came this time. However, in the Waterwood Heaven, the human race was the smallest race. Normally, there was no reason for so many people to come. But since they were here, the leaders outside were all his acquaintances. He couldn't let these people be exhausted in the battle. Han Fei immediately said to Shu Xiaoman via voice transmission, "I'm Han Fei. I'm lurking next to the Fish Dragon King for the time being." "Yes, you're looking in the right direction. I'm the most handsome one among the dozens of bodyguards around this silly girl." When Shu Xiaoman received Han Fei's voice transmission, she was shocked. Sure enough, the Jing messenger was right. Han Fei has such a magical ability. I haven't seen him for a few days and he's already mixed into the Sea Demon's team. Shu Xiaoman immediately responded, "Is it really you? How did you sneak into the Sea Demon's team?" Han Fei was speechless. "Why are you talking to me about this now? Let's cut to the chase. In this battle, we can at most fight a little." Hum. Needless to say, some insect clan powerhouses had already swept across the sky and attacked the Sea Demon camp. They heard Shu Xiaoman shout, "Fight and retreat" at the same time. "My Waterwood Heavenly Eyes is not here to fight. Don't fight." The Fish Dragon King shouted, "You want to leave? It depends on whether you are qualified to leave or not." After all, this was not a random secret realm, or it was not a secret realm at all. It was normal for the two sides to fight as soon as they entered the battlefield. Swish, swish, swish. The rain of swords had already swept over. Above the sky, the tornado swept across, and the sky-tearing claws clawed at the sea demon. There were almost no weaklings among the sea demons. Those that were sent into the Thousand Mountains ancient realm might not be very strong, but they were definitely not weak either. Moreover, they were both at the peak of the sea spirit realm. How weak could they be? Ding ding ding. Dang dang dang. The surface of the sea exploded, and a strange light flickered in the sky. Shouts and howls instantly rang out. And at that moment, Han Fei grabbed the harpoon in his hand, followed the Fish Dragon King, and used the void lines to capture 10 peak-level sea spirits. Although Han Fei couldn't directly use the power of an explorer, his soul power was already very strong. Before he became an explorer, he could control at least 3 peak-level law enforcers with the void lines. If it were ordinary peak-level law enforcers, he could control at least 5 or 6 of them. At this moment, he was already an explorer, and his divine soul was much higher than that of a peak sea spirit. What's wrong with controlling 10 people at once with lightning speed? Isn't that easy? After practicing the sky-stealing technique, Han Fei found that the void lines had become stronger and could even break through some people's divine soul protection. However, after all, these sea spirit realm sea demons were not weak. Besides, the materials Han Fei used to refine the void lines were no longer of a high enough grade. The materials he found at the beginning were basically the meridians of creatures at the sea spirit realm. At this moment, although the fishing line of this level was still very powerful, it was no longer invincible. Han Fei didn't know who among them had divine soul protection. Therefore, he still missed one in this attempt to grab him. The fish that escaped the net exclaimed, "Pay attention, everyone, pay attention to protect your divine soul. Someone in the waterwood sky has a method of attacking with divine soul." As soon as this remark came out, many sea demons' expressions changed, and they immediately became vigilant. A method of attacking the divine soul? How could they do that? This was even more difficult to guard against than physical injuries, almost like their spiritual piercing. Han Fei cursed in his heart. It seemed that it was time to consider practicing the void lines again. The ones at the sea spirit realm were no longer enough. He had to upgrade them. Of course, even so, Han Fei still controlled the 9 sea demons and pretended to sprint. Han Fei said to Shu Xiaoman via voice transmission, "Shu Xiaoman, act with me." Shu Xiaoman cheered up. "Okay." In a flash, Shu Xiaoman shouted, "Everyone, we must unite. The enemy far outnumbers us. Let's fight with all our strength." A man holding an eagle bow, guarding Shu Xiaoman, shouted, "Let's fight while we retreat." With that, the man shot out arrows like rain, and the shadowless arrow stream burst out. The Fish Dragon King sneered. "So it's you who took the lead? Let me see what the heavenly talents of the waterwood sky are like." Dragon King 6 collapsing mountains. The spear light flashed, and in the void, a clanging sound burst out. The shadowless arrow stream failed to kill the Fish Dragon King. The archer said in surprise, "This person is so fast." "Young man, let me," however, Shu Xiaoman directly pushed him away. In the startled eyes of the archer, Shu Xiaoman shot straight with her bow. Explode, 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 bim, yim, yim. The Fish Dragon King was about to see how strong the leaders of the waterwood sky were. But in the next second, 3 peak-level sea spirits around him suddenly exploded. In an instant, within a radius of dozens of kilometers, the wind and waves shook violently. The sea was blown up, and the Fish Dragon King was covered in dust. Dozens of people around him were directly injured by the explosion. Who knew that their comrades who were still sprinting a second ago would explode in the next second? At this moment, the Fish Dragon King was dumbfounded. What kind of combat skill is this? Has it become popular to shout out combat skills? After all, it was the self-explosion of peak-level sea spirits, and its power could not be underestimated. The Fish Dragon King was blasted away by the 3 explosions, covered in dust and covered in blood. However, the Fish Dragon King was fine. After all, he was a super strong master who ranked 10th on the heavenly talent list. How could he be shaken by the self-explosion of an ordinary peak-level sea spirit? At this moment, he was still shaking with his spear, causing the void to tremble. he shouted. Despicable means, see how easily my Dragon King's spear breaks it. However, Shu Xiaoman pointed at the fish Dragon King. Explode. Rumble. The fish dragons were blown into the sea again. Plop. In the rolling waves, the fish Dragon King was injured by 4 of his companions before he could kill one of them. How embarrassing would it be if he were to flaunt this to others? Roar. With a flash between the fish Dragon King's eyebrows, a weird and ferocious giant snake covered with red and white scales appeared. The fish Dragon King cursed, "I'd like to see who else you are controlling. Don't come over." As soon as the fish Dragon King turned over, he found that 3 more people had surrounded him, giving him no chance to make a move at all. With 3 bang, bang, bang sounds coming from Shu Xiaoman's mouth, a terrifying self-explosion sound of boom, boom, boom came from the surface of the sea. At this moment, the fish Dragon King was really dumbfounded, thinking, am I so fucking lucky? I just found a random person and I met such a strong opponent? Or, are the people of the Shuemu heavens so powerful now? I didn't even feel it, but the people around me have already been controlled by the other party? Damn it, the fish Dragon King was a little weak. Who could withstand this? He had prepared a spear, but before he could even poke it out, he had been bombarded 7 times in a row. This time, the fish Dragon King immediately shouted, "Don't come close to me." In Han Fei's heart, the old turtle's voice sounded, "I really feel sorry for this kid. How did he meet you?" Han Fei responded, "What's wrong with meeting me? It's his luck to meet me. By the way, do you still want to make a sacrifice? This is a good opportunity not to be suspected." The old turtle said leisurely, "That's true." Han Fei pretended to retreat, shouting as he retreated, "Don't panic, Master Dragon King. Although this person's means are amazing, fortunately, they are not powerful enough." Seeing that Han Fei could still speak, the fish Dragon King heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there was nothing wrong with the follower I chose. Otherwise, this scene would be too embarrassing. Shu Xiaoman pointed her finger again, and there were 2 consecutive explosions. This time, because one of them was deliberately let into the crowd by Han Fei just now. There was a lucky guy who was unfortunately chosen by the Grim Reaper. While he was still in a daze, he was blown to death. Seeing this scene, the fish Dragon King immediately took a breath. "Let's go. Don't panic. This is just the beginning." And the human beings, the Sky Clan, the Insect Clan, and the tree demons who witnessed Shu Xiaoman's finger poking. They were all dumbfounded at this moment. Damn, where did this godlike skill come from? Can you fight like this? 9 consecutive explosions at the beginning? Who dares to fight with you? Shu Xiaoman secretly stuck out her tongue. This feeling, why does it feel a little cool? How great would it be if I could really kill someone by just pointing my finger twice in the air? While Shu Xiaoman was dreaming, outside the Thousand Mountain ancient realm, Yu Wendao was cultivating in seclusion and was not ready to fight anyone. Suddenly he felt Han Fei's prayer. Immediately he made a decision. He spread the law of truth in his mind, and what he got in return was a black soul. This time, Yu Wendao felt that his heart skipped a beat. An extreme thirst for blood and the pursuit of power came to his mind. What a terrifying and tough soul. It's the first time I've seen someone's desire for power to such an extent. I'm afraid this Yuhanjia is stronger than I thought. Yu Wendao's eyes lit up. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to the day when he becomes a walking dead. Chapter 12:24. In the Thousand Mountain ancient realm, only the Fish Dragon King's side was fighting. Half of them had already rushed to the mountains as soon as they came in. As a matter of fact, the start was not smooth. The Ichthyosaur King's face was covered in dust from the explosions. As a heavenly talent, he suffered a loss in the first round. He pointed his spear at Shu Xiaoman. "Human, I'll remember you. Don't give me a chance, or I'll cut your head off." Shu Xiaoman sneered. "I bet you can't survive the Thousand Mountain ancient realm." To the bystanders, it sounded like 2 powerful experts were exchanging harsh words with each other. But in fact, the Fish Dragon King's threat was real. But Shu Xiaoman didn't threaten him at all. She knew that the Fish Dragon King was doomed. She didn't know what Han Fei's purpose was. However, Han Fei had already snuck to his side. She couldn't figure out how this arrogant heavenly talent of the Sea Clan could survive Han Fei's attack. However, Shu Xiaoman wasn't immersed in the pleasure of pretending to be a heavenly talent. Seeing that the Fish Dragon King and the others were about to retreat, she immediately said to Han Fei via voice transmission, "Han Fei, Messenger Jing said 3 things. First, protect the people of the Shuemu Heaven, Baibei Royal City, and the Blood Sea Divine Wood. Kill as many as you can. Second, there are secrets in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. You can search for them. Third, can you turn into a woman?" Han Fei, who was running with the Fish Dragon King, suddenly staggered. Immediately, the Fish Dragon King, Yu Kaling, and the others all stepped aside vigilantly. The Fish Dragon King even pointed his spear at Han Fei. "Speak." Han Fei hurriedly said, "I'm fine. It's just that some soul power tried to attack me just now, but it didn't succeed." Phew. Yu Kaling, Lan Shui, and the others all breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Han Fei could still speak. Otherwise, they would be horrified. Just how strong was that woman? If she could control someone as strong as Han Fei, who else couldn't she control? But Yu Kaling still asked, "Yu Hanjia, where did you meet me for the first time?" Everyone looked vigilant. If Han Fei gave a wrong answer, they would kill him immediately. Han Fei grinned. "On the way to Iceberg City, of course. I was looking for a place to make a breakthrough." Only then did Yu Kaling feel relieved. She turned her head and said, "That woman, Shui Mukin, has strange methods. She can actually control dozens of people in a row. His divine soul power must be extremely high. We need to be careful when we meet him in the future." The Fish Dragon King snorted coldly. "If it weren't for the fact that these people are too weak, why would I need to be so cautious? Forget it, we'll have to face each other sooner or later. Follow me to the front to explore." Seeing that Han Fei was fine, everyone was no longer worried. He replied from afar, "I can't, I'm a man. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going to follow this idiot into the Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm." When the initial battle came to an end, the 800 or so people dispersed. Even though they were all prodigies from Baibei Royal City, they belonged to the 4 major regions and each had their own territory. Besides, the number of sea demons was much higher than that of humans, who could recognize each other. Before they came in, the leading Dao-seeking realm powerhouse reminded them of the existence of the Fish Dragon King, Yu Hong, and the others and asked them to be careful. They didn't want to hang out with the top heavenly talents like the Fish Dragon King. Just the scene just now, in a single exchange, dozens of people around the Ichthyosaur King had fallen. This scene made their blood freeze. Naturally, there would be heavenly talents to deal with heavenly talents. Were they going to die? Just now, Han Fei's void lines attacked 2 people around the Fish Dragon King. Those 2 people weren't even his followers, but one of them could resist the power of the void lines and ran away. It could be seen that even though Han Fei looked down on the people around the Fish Dragon King, they were still heavenly talents. However, they were still far from being a heavenly talent like Han Fei. At this moment, there were 11 people around the Fish Dragon King, including himself. They were all brought out from the Ice God Gorge by the Fish Dragon King. As for the other people who came out from the Ice God Gorge, the Fish Dragon King didn't think highly of them either. The Fish Dragon King shouted, "There are thousands of giant mountains in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. It's a waste of time to explore them one by one. Follow me to the depths of the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm." Han Fei finally understood why so many people in the royal city didn't like the Fish Dragon King. He didn't even think about it once. You want to rush in at the start? Do you know what's inside? Do you know how dangerous it is inside? Once you really rush in, if someone comes to ambush you, you will really be alone and helpless. Han Fei couldn't help shaking his head slightly and said in his heart, "Old turtle, how is you Wendao? Just now, I felt some energy being sucked into your body. Is it done?" The old turtle was speechless. How can it be so fast? This is only the second sacrifice. I can't sacrifice a few times in an hour. That way, Yu Wendao will definitely notice that my soul is eroding him. Don't panic. If I do it 1 or 2 more times, he won't be able to resist even if he wants to. On the other side, Han Fei said patiently, I'm afraid that I won't be able to wait more than 1 or 2 times before I kill this idiot fish dragon king. The old turtle was silent for a moment. Take it easy. After killing Yu Wendao, I have to find a way to kill that turtle under the nose of the venerable. Han Fei shrugged. But I'm not sure how long I can wait. Once this fish dragon king threatens the people of Shuemu Heaven, I will kill him in minutes. The old turtle said, Boy, you can possess someone, right? Why don't you try to possess this fish dragon king? Han Fei curled his lips. I can kill him and become him. Why should I possess him? Possession is also dangerous. What if this guy has a soul-type treasure? You were also trapped in my sea of consciousness by the calabash, weren't you? Hearing Han Fei's words, the old turtle was speechless. Who knew that he would encounter such a situation when he possessed a random person? Why was he so lucky? After a moment, swish, swish, swished above the sky, some creatures of the Sky Clan flew past quickly. However, to Han Fei and the others' horror, when the first big bird rushed into the thousand-mountain ancient realm, above the mountains, black birds spread their wings and rose into the sky. Because those creatures were particularly large, Han Fei and the others could clearly see that the bodies of those black birds were incomplete. Some of their wings were full of holes, some of their feathers were dry, some of their beaks were broken in half, and some of their claws were gone. They were the undead creatures of the Sky Clan. However, to Han Fei's slight surprise, they didn't attack the creatures of the Sky Clan. In his opinion, these were actually not immortal heroic souls. They still had incomplete bodies, so they should be regarded as undead creatures. The immortal heroic souls existed to protect something, while the undead creatures might simply exist to live. Otherwise, they would have chosen to perish instead of becoming corpses. Before Han Fei raised his question, many people around him had already expressed their doubts. Someone asked in surprise, won't the undead creatures intercept the same species? The fish dragon king snorted. They're just some Sky Clan creatures. Let's kill them. They flew across the sky. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei and the others broke into the valley between the 2 mountains. However, the valley was not fully reflected. It was submerged about 3,000 meters under the sea. On the surface of the sea, clusters of dark green seaweeds gathered over. Han Fei's heart did a flip. Dream-eating algae? Yes, he recognized this spiritual plant at first glance. When he was in the 100,000 mountains, he often saw this kind of demonic plant in the coastal area. Sure enough, the next moment, Han Fei felt that he had a slight illusion in front of his eyes, as if he were covered by a layer of mist. However, the power of the dream-eating algae couldn't shake him anymore. They didn't even have the ability to confuse the people around him. However, since the dream-eating algae couldn't do it, and the void lines didn't work, Han Fei directly switched to mental puncture this time. Puff! Suddenly, among the 11 people, one of them was bleeding from his 7 orifices and his chest was spurting blood wildly. The fish dragon king frowned. Useless, you can't even resist the dream-eating algae. Why did I choose you? This person said, Master Dragon King, it's a very strong mental attack. Swish. The fish dragon king picked up a large piece of dream-eating algae and cleared the sea area 2,000 meters in front of him. The fish dragon king smiled contemptuously. Ignore these dream-eating algae. Fly over. Chirp, chirp, quack. On the mountain peak, hundreds of corpses of the Sky Clan leaped out. The leading one turned out to be a swallow-tailed kite, a special bird that also knew the heavenly void divine walking technique. When he was learning from the sky swimming falcon, Shimin Linglan was learning from this swallow-tailed kite, so it was extremely fast. Pumph! How dare you punish me when you're dead? Break it! The fish dragon king's spear pierced through the void and directly penetrated the swallow-tailed kite before it could react. Han Fei's face turned cold. Han Fei frowned. This guy's close distance was indeed not weak. Its speed was comparable to Zhang Xuanyu's instant mystic spear. One was world's end near, the other was time stop. They seemed to be very similar, but each had its own characteristics. However, seeing that the Fish Dragon King attacked the Sky Clan, Han Fei secretly swore, "How dare you attack the Sky Clan? This time, even if God himself came, he wouldn't be able to save you." Han Fei suddenly shouted, "What are you waiting for? How can the Master Dragon King take action in person? Are you the Master, or is the Master Dragon King the Master?" The Fish Dragon King was taken aback. "I've found so many followers. Why do I have to deal with such a small matter myself?" Immediately, the Fish Dragon King looked at Han Fei and smiled. "This kid is really insightful." Top. Chapter 12:25. Being greeted by Han Fei, the Fish Dragon King felt very pleased. He shouted in a low voice, "Experience is an indispensable part of becoming a strong master. Don't think that you can go to the Shuemu sky occasionally and fight a few battles. War is just a kind of experience." After a while, the Fish Dragon King pointed to a particularly high mountain in the distance and said, "Go there. The more conspicuous the place is, the easier it is to find opportunities. See, behind that mountain, there seems to be a green light soaring into the sky." Someone took a breath and said, "Master Dragon King, there are blood demons over there." How far could the mountains be from each other? Although these peaks were not connected, they were only separated by 7 or 8 peaks, more than 200 kilometers. In Han Fei's perception, within a radius of 1,000 kilometers, almost no one could escape his perception. And there were as many as 50 places that couldn't be scanned by his perception. On almost every mountain that appeared in his perception, there would be 1 or even 2 places that couldn't be detected. For example, Yang Ruoyun and the others were about 30 sea peaks away from Han Fei at this moment. At this moment, they were surveying a place of spiritual plants at the bottom of the sea. On the other side, Shu Xiaoman and more than a dozen men and women were galloping on the sea and had just rushed into this mountain range. And in Han Fei's perception, there were indeed 7 or 8 blood demons that had rushed over to the mountain that the Fish Dragon King pointed at. It could be seen that the other party did have an advantage by going 1 step ahead. Like the Fish Dragon King, Han Fei entered the mountains and saw the mountain at first glance. However, his eyes were not on the mountain itself, but the green light soaring into the sky that the Fish Dragon King mentioned. Heavenly Vine? Han Fei's eyes suddenly narrowed. From that height, the degree of sealing off his perception, and the vague feeling of vines, what else could it be if not Heavenly Vine? Hiss! Han Fei seemed to have discovered something. While rushing forward with the Fish Dragon King and the others, he sensed every nearby mountain and looked over bit by bit. Suddenly, Han Fei found a strangely shaped platform on one of the mountain peaks. The platform seemed to be formed by a mountain collapse. In his impression, there seemed to be such a place in the Grand Myriad Mountains. Then Han Fei found a big pit on a mountain on the other side. In his memory, there seemed to be a demonic plant that told him that it was the place where a Dalmatian cultivated in seclusion. Gulp. 100,000 mountains? Han Fei didn't feel good at all. Where was this place if not the 100,000 mountains? As he searched with his perception, memories surfaced in his mind. The surrounding environment gradually became familiar. He had tried every mountain and every flight path here. The reason why he didn't recognize it at first glance was that there were almost no demon plants on Harmony Mountain. That was why he had subconsciously ignored it. It was no wonder that he felt a sense of familiarity when he first entered. It turned out that this place was actually the Grand Myriad Mountains. Back then, he and the Falcon had almost flown all over the 100,000 mountains. Han Fei had even been to the Divine Child Peak, which no creature wanted to go to. Stop. Later, kill the blood demons first. Don't listen to the weird melody that they are playing. Fish cold armor. Yu Kaling quickly patted Han Fei on the shoulder. What are you thinking about? It seems that you are very absorbed in it. Han Fei took a breath and said, "Nothing, I just feel that the terrain and environment here are so strange." Han Fei's heart sank slightly, and he scanned again with his perception. He found that except for the undead creatures of the Sky Clan rushing towards them, there were no beasts or war giants here. However, there were some rotten insect bodies on the bottom of the sea, trembling as they propped themselves up. The Fish Dragon King didn't intend to take action, so Han Fei, Yu Kailing, and Lan Shui naturally wouldn't take action either. The three of them were the Fish Dragon King's subordinates, so they could only rely on the remaining heavenly talents of the Ice God Gorge to take action. At the moment when the 7 people rushed out one after another, a sneer appeared on Han Fei's face. All of a sudden, a strange dang 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 sound could be heard from the void. Han Fei couldn't stand the 9 sounds of the Great Way when he tried it. When he was still a law enforcer, he naturally couldn't use them to kill explorers. But now, he was already at the explorer realm. Couldn't he use them to control the sea spirit realm? Swish, swish, swish. The Fish Dragon King and the others all turned pale, and the Fish Dragon King roared angrily, "It's a blood demon. Blood demon curse. Guard your minds." The Fish Dragon King roared, his face solemn. He didn't expect that the blood demon would target him from the very beginning. It didn't make sense. Besides, why didn't he find where the blood demon was? Was it a peerless blood demon of the same level as him? In the sky, some people danced angrily, some attacked their companions with bloodshot eyes, and some were in grief and joy. They even foolishly rushed towards the undead creatures of the Sky Clan. The eagle claws tore the air, and its sharp beak pierced the air. In an instant, 4 people were directly stabbed to death or scratched to death. They probably didn't even know what they were doing when they died. He had just rushed out, and before he could even show his loyalty, he had already fallen. There were also 2 people who were extremely enraged by the 9 sounds and went berserk. Han Fei secretly activated it, and a scene of the environment appeared in his mind. In the eyes of those 2 people, they only saw the Fish Dragon King hugging Lan Shui while pointing at them and laughing. "Baby, do you see that? You want to follow me with such strength? That's just wishful thinking." Then the Fish Dragon King that Han Fei outlined scolded, "You 2 bastards, why aren't you killing the enemies? If it's useless, you might as well die." In an instant, the 2 of them were infuriated. "We are fucking heavenly talents. Why do we have to be so humble in front of the Fish Dragon King? Why do we have to fight for you? Why do you have to mock us like this?" Flying star explosion. One of the half-mermaids was directly stained with blood, and a starry sea-flying fish fused into his body. The harpoon in his hand flashed, and he instantly rushed to the Fish Dragon King. The Fish Dragon King was furious. "Son of a bitch, are you crazy? How dare you betray your master?" But at this moment, a huge scorpion-tailed red needle emerged from another half-mermaid and pierced through the void. "Go to hell." Han Fei remained calm and pretended that he couldn't react in time, but Yu Kailing had already pounced out. Han Fei glanced at Lan Shui, who was pushed out by the Fish Dragon King, and his eyes flashed as his soul pierced. Lan Shui didn't expect things to develop like this. The person next to her was ranked 10th on the heavenly talent list in the royal city. How could a few trifling Sky Clan undying creatures pose a threat to them? However, the truth was that it had happened. Those undead creatures were still pouncing because they couldn't hear the 9 sounds of the Great Way at all. And the others were almost all hit. Lan Shui bled from her 7 orifices, and her body froze in midair after being pierced by Han Fei's soul. She was pierced by the flying star explosion again. The Fish Dragon King roared, "Bastard, go to hell." The Fish Dragon King flipped his hand and a spear appeared in front of the half-mermaid's chest. Bam! The spear pierced this person. Lan Shui was pierced by a centipede again. What a beautiful half-mermaid. Her body quickly turned dark green. Not only was her body pierced twice, but she was also poisoned. Suddenly, Lan Shui burst out. A terrifying power burst out of Lan Shui. That was the power of the Tao-seeking state. It seemed that at the last moment, Lan Shui's desire to survive made her exert her strongest combat power. Lan Shui withdrew an icicle with one hand, and then the seawater surged, wrapped her up, and froze her into an iceberg. This should be a kind of self-defense power. However, through the ice, Han Fei saw that Lan Shuer was about to turn dark green. She should not be far from death. Besides, when Lan Shuer burst out the power of the Tao-seeking state, there was a sudden bell ring, and even Han Fei was shaken to the ground. The rules of the Great Way. Han Fei thought to himself, fortunately, Lan Shuer's power came and went quickly. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened to her. Han Fei didn't care about Lan Shuer's life at all. He shouted, "How dare you? How dare you attack the Dragon King? Who gave you the guts?" Yu Keiling's face was extremely dark. For some reason, when she set off from the Ice God Gorge, she had been uneasy and felt that something was wrong. How long had it been since they entered the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm? Not even half an hour had passed, and they hadn't climbed a single mountain yet. Almost all her comrades were dead. Yes, a total of 11 people followed the Fish Dragon King into the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. At this moment, only she and Han Fei were left. Han Fei saw water rippling around Yu Keiling's ears. She seemed to be trying to resist the power of the Great Way's 9 sounds. However, how could she resist the Great Way's 9 sounds just by blocking her hearing? Han Fei and Yu Keiling attacked the last person who had gone crazy almost at the same time. Puchi. When the last person died in anger, Yu Keiling suddenly clutched her head and screamed. Han Fei turned around and quickly stepped into the air, rushing at the Fish Dragon King while shouting, "Let's go! There's an ambush here." Han Fei ignored Yu Keiling. How should he put it? This woman was probably one of the few types of sea demons, and she was also the kind that was quite serious. If it weren't for the fact that their positions were different, Han Fei didn't think he would have attacked her. At this moment, she must have fallen into the sound of fear. He didn't know what she was thinking. When Han Fei glanced at her for the last time, he found that the girl was trembling all over and looked very frightened. The Fish Dragon King had never seen such a scene before. In terms of fighting, he didn't think he was a coward. However, since he entered the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, all kinds of strange things had happened to him. There was a woman who could control souls on the Shuemu Heaven's side. With a point of her finger, one of his people would explode, which was really creepy. Now, he hadn't even seen the shadow of the enemy, but a few dead birds and a melody. He was surprised to find that all the thugs around him had been wiped out. Besides, the Fish Dragon King felt that there was a sense of irritation in his heart that he couldn't suppress anymore. However, Han Fei's roar woke him up. Don't be in a daze. Get to the bottom of the sea. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.